Well, Charles, how are you?
Pretty good, my friend. Great to be here.
Yes, it's Wednesday, so that means you're closing in. It's been quite a day.
Closing in with a vengeance.
Yes, and one of our favorite people has had an interesting day today, Mr. Beauregard Sessions.
You mean Forrest Gump's uncle?
Forrest Gump's uncle, Forrest Gumple, or something like that. You know, Charles, we're back on D Live. I don't know how many people are watching us on D Live, but I like to diversify the platforms, you know, and that's a distributed, decentralized live streaming platform that has disconnected itself from Steemit.com. They're now associated with another blockchain, so perhaps they saw some of the same evidence that I saw and formulated the opinion that the evidence seems to indicate that there might be a fraud going on related to Steemit.com.
And so what, Steemit is now on a sister operation called Deceive?
That's a good idea. I don't know about that, but you know, Steemit's got its own thing going on, but it lost its live video streaming component. I would like to speak with our friend Mike Adams, who of course has his video service which stores video but can't stream video. I wonder if the two might be able to join together in some way and sort of scratch each other's backs.
You're doing deals? Well, you're doing deals.
Yeah, well, you know, I can't really figure out how to save videos on DLive, but we've got tons of people watching us on YouTube, Periscope. I think I told you Periscope had an improvement recently where we can use some of our really lovely thumbnail images on Periscope now, which is nice. I'm surprised we only have less than 5,000 people following on Periscope, and there's almost 70,000 on YouTube. We've exceeded 69,500 with Crowdsource the Truth. And Periscope is connected to Twitter. I've frequently discussed with people my frustration in the inability to overcome this sort of blockade on Twitter. I need to speak to Jared Beck and find out what's going on with their class action lawsuit against Twitter. Of course, Larry Klayman at freedomwatchusa.org has got a lawsuit going against Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all of them. Laura Loomer, super pissed off at Twitter, all kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah, there's a story, I didn't send it to you, but there's a story just up, I think, on either Free Republic or Zero Hedge about how a leading Silicon Valley investor has come forward to say that the whole unicorn startup, you know, world is one gigantic Ponzi scheme. And
whoa,
there's an element, I think there are some very good companies out, that were created out of Silicon Valley, but I happen to agree with that theory that you watch Theranos, for example. It was Elizabeth Holmes, you know, everybody fawned all over her, and like turned out to be just a complete invention.
Something with blood, that Theranos?
Well, it basically didn't work, but she just convinced a whole bunch of famous people. I mean, I think people included George Shultz and maybe Henry Kissinger, all these famous old white guys.
I don't trust Henry Kissinger.
Who does?
Hillary Clinton.
But you're right, when you start at the beginning, today we're going to talk about this fraud busting group, and we've been giving, joking now if anyone on the president's staff happens to be watching, but you know, we've been giving the president a lot of slack because there's so much that he does, and we're just trying to push one narrow thing, and that is to bring the laws and the regulations that should be administering and making sure that charities operate within the letter of the law inside the United States and around the world. That's our narrow focus. The president has worked on many things at once, and it sure seemed to me for a while as if here we are exposing video after video, and you know, we haven't been able to play indictment bingo, but you know, I think we're getting pretty damn close to the start of indictment bingo. I think that what's happened in the last 24 hours, indeed in the last 3 to 4 hours, is amazing.
Yes.
And so this isn't entirely in the script, but I'll just summarize. I mean, I know people are interested. Apparently, right before Donald Trump gave his press conference, and I'm not sure what time it actually started, it was slated to be going on at 11:30. Chief of Staff Kelly contacted Sessions and said, dude, you're going to resign. And
Why did they wait until now?
I think they waited to see what was going to happen in the election. Had the Senate moved to a place where there were fewer than 51 Republicans who might confirm a follow-on Attorney General, it would be, I think, a very difficult thing to do what they're now going to do. And Sessions is out. They put an acting person in. His name is, I think, Matthew Whitaker. He's on Wikipedia because somebody, I think a friend of ours has sent you the entry on the man. But it turns out that this Whitaker fellow, who is currently now the acting Attorney General of the United States, gave a Breitbart interview in August of 2016 where he said that, in his view, a special counsel was certainly needed for the Clinton Foundation, in that he said on this radio broadcast that he saw the Clinton Foundation as a far more serious case of fraud and public corruption. So on the one hand, we've had this sudden shift, Sessions out, Whitaker temporarily in, but even more alarming to that paragon of virtue, and I say that with a smirk, more than a smirk on my face, Eric Holder is up in arms, and Gerald Nadler is up in arms because apparently it's also the case that Whitaker is now going to have purview over the Mueller investigation, and Rosenstein is no longer supervising the Mueller investigation. So that's...
Look at who's advertising on CNBC. I think this is a magazine you need to read if you're a CNBC viewer.
What is it?
High Times is a magazine all about cannabis. But here we see Trump's new acting Attorney General, Matthew Whitaker, who's criticized the Mueller probe, will now oversee it. I think that's a reasonable thing. The Mueller probe is...
Well, we've done show after show, and we're not lawyers, but you just look at the special counsel statute, and to me, there was no obvious reason to appoint a special counsel for that case, and they're not investigating a crime.
Let's address for a moment people who would watch Charles Ortel is closing in and say, well, we're just Trump thumpers or whatever, and anything Trump we like and anything that's not Trump we go against. And let's talk about that. Special counsel is not intended to just subpoena every single person that's ever done business with the president and throw them in jail and shake them down until they confess to some...
Right.
It's not even a crime. We've heard on plenty of other shows people and situations that have nothing to do with the president where this whole mechanism of forcing people to accept these plea deals is a gross distortion of the justice system.
No, so I think I can speak for myself and say that I am very much an anti-fraud person. Right. And it happens, I started on exposing these complex frauds picking on GE. And GE, some would have said, was pretty much, it's a gigantic company getting smaller every minute, but under the Welch heyday, it certainly was pro-Republican. And indeed it being too pro-Republican, but because it's so big trying to get business from around the world, it has to sort of have friends all across the political spectrum. So I started with that. I've exposed, that I started on in February of 2007, and it wasn't long before Barack Obama won, and so while he was there was a tremendous amount of fraud, I think, all over the place, and I spent time exposing that, and then I drifted into this charity fraud exposition by February of 2015. So I'm not necessarily anti-Obama or anti-Clinton. I'm more anti-fraud, and if you're going to spend your life as a fraudster and your name happens to become Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and now Chelsea Clinton loving the fraud thing, I'm mad at you because of the fraud. I'm not mad at you because you're Clintons.
We're not even mad. I think we've.
Well, I'm actually pretty mad about the fraud. Yeah. No, because there's so many. So why I'm mad about it is, in my experience, I've been to not enough countries. There are about 200 in the world. I've been to maybe 65, 70, and especially when you go to the poorer countries, I've been to many of them. There you see, and it's not Rockefellers and Gateses. It's oftentimes it's a small church or a synagogue or even a mosque, American one. Sending money and volunteers to some remote place and actually trying to put in a water well in some remote village in Africa or India or something like that. And these are people who are, in the main, not wealthy people. These are people who just believe that they have, they're privileged and they want to do right, and they actually want to help. And when you see, and so much of the charity world is people like that. When you see somebody who should know better, Bill Clinton is supposed to be smart, Hillary Clinton is supposed to be smart, Chelsea Clinton, I don't know. But when you see people like that who are revered, and money is showered on these people, they have multiple mansions and they're collecting ridiculous speaking fees, all because they're successful, quote, philanthropists. And you learned, just as we were coming on air, we learned that this, I may have the name wrong, but his last name is Stockman, I think his first name was Steve. He was just sentenced. This is a guy who had a role in a $1.25 million charity fraud. He's going to prison for 10 years, has to pay the money back, and he then has 3 years of supervised release. These are federal crimes over a $1.25 million fraud. The Clinton thing, if you just take their declared numbers, is $3 billion, right? And I'm anti-fraud, and I think that's an area where, when we think about it, people on the left, the people on the right, when they really sit down and they think about what is the implication about obtaining something of value by deceit. You come to me and you say, well, I've got this medical problem, and I say, well, that's a good thing, I'm a doctor, only I'm not a doctor. I'll set your left arm in a cast, and you give me $10,000 and I put some plaster on your arm, and I don't know what I'm doing, but you've got plaster on your arm. Say, hey, thanks a lot, here's the $10,000. And people do that, actually, believe it or not. And
fraud doctors.
There are many fraud doctors. So
why would someone do that? It's so.
There was a guy here, like 10, 20 years ago, I think he went to prison for a while. He used to drive around in a pink Rolls Royce or a purple Rolls Royce or something like that with a license plate that said 1-800-TUSH. What? And he was a plastic surgeon, and he had done, butt implants and breast implants. He never even went to medical school.
Wow.
Cutting people open and stuff.
How could he even, that's amazing.
So when that kind of stuff happens, and has happened, I think, in this Clinton Foundation case, you cannot let it go unpunished. Because if you do that, that's only going to excite the fraudster community. Say, well, look, the former president of the United States and his wife, who's going to be president, his daughter, who thinks she's going to be president, doesn't care about money. Look what they've done. 3 mansions, living the high life, fancy apartment here in Manhattan for Chelsea and Mark Mazvinsky, all, through a life of fraud. And you can't let that go unpunished. So what's happened, and you've been particularly patient, and the viewers have been patient, with show after show where we've been laying out different facets of this fraud, hoping that somebody like a Matthew Whitaker, who is, after all, now acting Attorney General of the United States and should understand fraud, and definitely has the power to go back into the file and say, if back in August of 2016, based on the facts and evidence that he saw, not even focused on the case, he felt a special prosecutor was warranted, he felt there was stuff there. He now has, this is our 118th video. He doesn't have to watch all 118, though he would be saving a fair amount of time if he did so. The contours of this fraud are so vast and complex. They've gone big into fraud. It's like, we're not going to do a little fraud. You go with the Clinton way, you go big and bad. Yeah. So we need our president. I hope, I don't know if these are Space Force suits that we got here.
Right. Well, that's the FRAUDBUSTERS, of course, Charles. And it's one of the rare occasions that I've included you and I in the graphic for today.
Well, we're protecting the president there. We've got our slime guns trained on the person who would slime the president. But I'm telling you, the performance in the last 24 hours, here's a gentleman who is 70 plus, who has done I don't know how many rallies in the last week.
It is impressive.
Who and today decides, for fun, I think I'll face down the press. Yeah. I don't know if you heard about this press conference, but we'll talk about it in a bit. And to come out and do what he's done, and to take on these people and say, listen, we're changing horses. I want Sessions out. Rosenstein's not on the Mueller probe. Let's see what you guys are doing with the Mueller probe. We're going to make a statement that charity fraud is serious in this Stockman case. And by the way, as a guest, it is not gone unnoticed by the Trump team and the people who might be prosecuting these cases, investigating them, that the Clinton Foundation faces this hard deadline on November 15th, which is a week from tomorrow. They have to get their tax filings in with all the related paperwork. And more to the point, unless you think, it's not affecting you, Bill Gates, all the 50 private foundations that I know of in the United States that have been donating to this fraud, they better correct their filings. In particular, if they are calendar year filers, they have until a week from today, tomorrow rather, to correct their filings about what they've done in terms of giving money to this fraud.
November 15th, the day of reckoning for our good friend Eric Hansen.
Exactly, and his collection of Truman stuffed animals.
He's just got the one big one.
Yeah.
But that'll do.
So the art department, again, outdone themselves. I mean, this is a poster. Again, if we had the ability, I don't know how to do this, if you're the technical wizard, if we had the ability to have a screen where somewhere else, where movie posters that you've done and sort of cycle through on odd,
Well, I think what I'm going to do, I know I've said this many times, but I'm trying to block out some time to actually do it. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of the best show graphics and put them together in a screensaver. And then what I'll do is I'll make it like a free gift to people who sponsor the show on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Because I do want to thank the generous sponsors of the show and incentivize people to become sponsors. Charles, I was just showing you that someone's created this graph where you can track all of the channels on Patreon. Crowdsource the Truth is in the top 0.5 percentile of all channels on Patreon.
So that means you're up there with the millionaires and billionaires.
I actually spoke to Jack Conte about that. I asked him, what was it like on the first day that you minted the first Patreon millionaire? And he said it was unbelievable. There's more than one.
Really?
Yeah, people who are making over $100,000 a month from Patreon. So I'm impressed with Patreon. It's a startup itself, and it is a company worth our support because I think I mentioned this in our last broadcast, but Jack was an extremely sincere guy, very dedicated to that company, and I got a very good feeling from him, meeting him, talking to him, and in his speech he said he doesn't want Patreon to be bought by Google or Facebook or something like this. He wants it to remain independent, and he wants it to be financially strong, and that's the same way I feel about Crowdsource the Truth. That's why I always appeal to people to become sponsors of the show at patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Even just $2 a month, it helps quite a lot. It's less than what you would pay for 1 month of the Wall Street Journal, which is frankly loaded with crap in my view, and it's less than you'd pay for 1 cup of coffee or a single magazine. So hopefully more and more people will migrate over there as we progress.
That's good. Yeah. Well, hats off to the art department.
Thank you.
Chunking this stuff out.
Oh, this was a nice touch. I thought it was difficult to get this going. I had to do quite a bit of Photoshop work to get the ghost into a U there.
Well done.
The famous Ghostbusters little, I don't know what you call that, the ghost with the no ghosts sign there. But Charles, as you said, this is our 118th episode, I believe, and our newfound friend, Acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker, as you said, could save quite a bit of time by just going to the playlist on YouTube. This is on the Jason Goodman channel on YouTube, the original home of Crowdsource the Truth. And you can go through all of the Sunday with Charles and Charles Ortel is Closing In videos. There's quite a few there, so perhaps maybe Jeff Sessions will have some time on his hands and start watching these and think about what he didn't do while he was Attorney General. He's got to be the least active Attorney General in history. Frankly, I mean, he seemed to do less than my grandfather in the last years of his life, which was mostly just hanging out at the house watching The Godfather on VHS.
That's right. Anyway, so I commend you on this playlist, and it is the case. There has been a method to the way in which we've produced all of these videos. What we've tried to do is we've tried each week, each video, we've tried to treat breaking news to give people a sense that they're in on the latest and greatest action, and they're part of this big team that you've now built of almost 70,000 subscribers who watch this regularly. And thank you for the many emails and comments that we get and suggestions. It is, I think, though, I hope and trust that people in Washington, D.C. and the various field offices of the FBI and U.S. attorneys' offices and governments around the world, I hope they are watching this. And in time, if it's necessary for us to answer questions, we'd happily do that.
Huh.
So, if we go to the first page, though, of the slide presentation, because I want to try to keep this
Yes, of course.
under 14 hours.
Right.
So what's happened, and I put these slides together, I started on them yesterday, and then finished them off this morning in the early afternoon. And I didn't know, frankly, when I didn't watch the press conference. I just got reports of what had happened. So on the one hand, we have the final results rolling in for the midterm elections. And a word on those, I am, in a way, disheartened that we didn't keep the House. But on the other hand, we'll talk more about context. We get what we want. I think when you strive for excellence, you're pushing yourself really hard, it's fair to be disappointed, if you're only in the top 0.5% instead of the top 0.0001% or whatever. But top 0.5% is pretty good. And similarly, in the first terms of previous presidents, in the first midterm election of the first term of previous presidents, Obama got slaughtered, Clinton got slaughtered. When you think about their losses at House level, then Senate level, and gubernatorial level, so far the known results that are coming in actually are not that bad compared to recent previous presidents in their midterms. And on the other hand, and also we don't really know the final results. I mean, people were all up in everyone's grill last night. I was even on television at midnight, taking questions and talking about stuff. And I urged an international audience to just calm down. It was only 9 o'clock in the West Coast, and I guess Hawaii, not that Hawaii matters that much in terms of the number of votes, was still open. We're not going to know many of the House results for a while. We're not going to know some of the important Senate results for a while. We have, in the case of Mississippi, we have a runoff election that'll happen in a few weeks. So we really don't know the final math, and I'd say we're a good week to 10 days away from getting the nice.
Well, you mentioned being up in people's grills. I think you might want to consider the next time you're on RT, Charles. Maybe you should be rocking a grill, a little bit of ice up in the grill.
That's not the Chuckster. So on the one hand, everyone was focused on these midterm elections, and rightly so. Now they're over for the most part. But on the other hand, this November 15th deadline, which is a week from tomorrow, is really, really serious, because unlike your standard prosecution, with a charity fraud, when you're out there still soliciting, as the Clintons are and as some of the donors to the Clinton Foundation are, you have affirmative obligations to notify regulators of the states, in the states where you solicit, particularly the states that have tough laws like New York and California, in the international jurisdictions. If you have what's called a material adverse event, say some group of people claiming that you're not a charity, that you're not even a corporation, and producing, say, 118 videos about it, and doing umpty-ump interviews around the world, and not getting contradicted by anybody, chances are that there's a problem, and chances are the accounting firms that have done horrible work, and we've talked about what would be the right phrase to describe the work product of BKD? Would garbage be appropriate?
Not great.
Not great. Yeah. I mean, it's sitting there that goes around writing, marketing puff pieces and trying to comply with get accounting licenses and do continuing education in multiple states and foreign jurisdictions, but will let stand garbage work for a presidential archive foundation that was never authorized to be anything other than that, and never authorized to do anything outside Little Rock. If you're going to do that and then palm that work off on Price Waterhouse and let Price Waterhouse do a couple of years worth of audits based on your garbage work, that's highly material to the consolidated whole of this foundation, and then turn around and either hoodwink or willingly induce Cohn-Resnick, yet another firm, into this mess. And you're going to sit there as head of the AICPA and head of the International Accounting Standards Body and pretend that you don't have a problem, pretend that you shouldn't have to rescind your work, and you're staring this deadline down of next Wednesday, where some firm is going to have to produce an audit for this mess, and they're going to have to produce it based on representations from who? From the very same managers who've been lying to regulators and lying to accountants, because that's what they do. They graduated from Yale Law School, and that's what they do.
I've just realized something, Charles. Perhaps this thing that we thought was Truman the Tiger's mouth is actually a consolidated whole. Everything's going in there. Yeah. You never know.
Yeah. One thing that we're going to do, and I won't reveal the travel details, but for a number of different reasons, we're going to be holding this closing in, and then another closing in next week, and then another closing in right before Thanksgiving, because somebody you may know is in the midst of editing a very lengthy document that will be explaining, just on the off chance that the prosecutors can't figure this out and can't get the math right and can't understand why, the audit trail, in quotes, audit trail for these Clinton Foundation, in quotes, charities, is a joke. Somebody might be hard at work at a lengthy document that will be circulated for free in the public domain whenever I finish it, based on, however, these audits come out a week from tomorrow. So I'll see what they do. We'll get a chance to see whether they do the right thing and fold and beg for mercy, which of course they're not going to do.
That.
So then we're going to have to, was it Adam Sandler who says in Waterboy, open up a can of whoop ass? I mean, that's what we're going to have to do.
I didn't know that he said that.
Oh yeah, it's great. Waterboy is a great movie.
It's high quality H2O.
That's right.
Now, did we cover our usual, I think we forgot, well, we're not there yet.
That's right.
Yes, the standard disclaimer, Charles.
Yeah, so again, to our subscribers, and you seem to be having new ones every week, so we have to cover this particularly for the new ones. This is a group exercise. I try to provide the text and the information that people can ponder and then circulate as they see fit. Many of you are doing excellent work and sending these presentations around to regulators and to the BKD people and Price Waterhouse and Cohn-Resnick, and we're going to be introducing a law firm into the mix today, Simpson Thacher, that seems to have been doing some pretty bad work. So this is not like CNN, where fake yapper gets up there and spews garbage.
Or Fox, or NPR, or any of these gigantic.
It's not meant to be a one-way thing. It's not meant to be a 6 or 8 minute interlude with 2 or 3 guests where everybody gets 90 seconds and you can never make a real argument because you got to cut to a MyPillow advertisement or a drug advertisement or who knows what. This is more meant to try to expose facts that are in the public domain, bring them all together, make connections, and then allow the highly educated super elites that frankly are watching the show to decide how they and they can push our politicians, push our regulators to enforce these laws and to bring the long saga of Clinton chicanery and criminality to its deserved end. So to that end, what we do is we provide a lot of information that's in the public domain, links to it, and then we give you our thoughts. Jason and I express views. It's tough for us to take questions. I can't see any of the comments as they're coming in, but
I try to do my best, but it is also kind of difficult. We've got this, we have a lot of graphics on the show, so the screens are all filled up with stuff, and I've recently rearranged this so we're not getting so much noise from the computer on the microphone. I think that helps overall.
Always improving.
But of course, Charles, people can go to charlesortel.com to get some more information as they see fit. And easiest way we've determined for people to email you directly from the website is to just Google "Contact Me" and charlesortel.com, and that'll take people right to the contact form. But of course, you're also on Twitter, very active on Twitter, and people can follow you there at Charles Ortel, and there we see Beauregard just waiting for his neck. I mean, what is this guy gonna do now? Jeff Sessions. And of course, I'm still in Twitter purgatory, just unable to break this 24.3 thousand follower ceiling right here. I hope that people will follow Crowdsource the Truth, because it's important that we have a lot of redundancy in these social media platforms. You never know who's going to get a strike, who's going to get shadow banned or deplatformed, or all of these things. These are like words we never heard of before a few years ago, Charles, and now these are the dreaded things that can happen. I was texting a bit with Dr. Corsi yesterday. He's back online on his YouTube channel. Of course, he's restricted in what he can discuss. He's not talking about the Mueller investigation at all. And I mean, frankly, I think that's a clear demonstration of exactly what they want to do. There are some really underinformed people out there who like to jump to conclusions and think that simply because Robert Mueller subpoenas someone or even indicts someone, that is tantamount to a guilty verdict. But in fact, this is a very well used technique of lawfare where pressure can be put on people. Dr. Corsi has said that he's been put under tremendous financial pressure simply having to respond to these ridiculous subpoenas, and Mueller knows full well that he can do that and dish them out to whoever he wants and create a real financial problem for some people.
That's you raised an excellent point. You asked a question I didn't answer beforehand, which is that when we think, and I'm not a legal scholar or a historian or whatever, but when we think about American history, in fact, it did not begin in 1776, it did not begin in 1607, it did not begin in 1492. The ancient legal principles and traditions that animated the founders in their work putting together the Constitution were English law, which is primarily based on Roman law. So it goes way, way back. And over centuries, powerful kings had abused their privileges many, many times. And so a central premise of American law, a central sort of revolution in the American Revolution, or a facet of the American Revolution, is this notion that you are indeed innocent until proven guilty, and then to restrict the ability of any one branch of government to come and take over the entire country. The three branches were supposed to be co-equal. So this idea of a special counsel not really reporting to anybody, and in addition going down a track where they were investigating people and not crimes, is so far away, in my mind, from being something that should be allowed and consistent with constitutional principles, as to raise the question of why, who are the powers in the judicial branch that are supposed to rein in a rogue operation. And it strikes me that the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court would probably be one person you might be able to appeal to one way or another. But the very way in which Mueller was appointed, the way in which he, in quotes, was supervised, the fact that he has obvious conflicts of interest, he and Comey and Rosenstein, or Rodenstein, have obvious conflicts of interest, are all issues which I hope this new gentleman, the acting Attorney General, and whoever else may be studying it with him, are looking at very carefully, because I think if it is the case that Mueller has now gone and diverted the attention of many inside the government and the public inside America and around the world for so much money, it's not simply the money, it's the time and the effort and the lost attention that has been spent trying to figure out what the hell Mueller is doing and react to, and the blind alleys he's gone down, instead of looking at obvious problems, which it seems to me are illegal acts. And those would be the former administration, the Barack Obama administration, colluding with a portion of the Democratic Party, specifically the Clintons, one law firm, at least one law firm, Perkins Coie, to rig the Democratic primaries, perhaps to rig the Republican primaries to promote Donald Trump, and then to attempt to yank the general election away from him with that tape and this Russian story. Those are real crimes that don't involve Russians. Those involve Americans, in theory. Right. And those, it would seem to me, fall squarely within the purview of our Department of Justice. So as a starting point, one of the questions I would have for this Matthew Whitaker is, what the hell has been going on since January 20th, 2017? Before we get into what was going on in the previous administration, how did Mueller get selected? Who was supervising him? Who decided his scope of work? Why was it necessary to have Mueller do anything when Comey had authorized an investigation, in theory, this Crossfire hurricane? Was there another investigation authorized by perhaps Barack Obama? How consistent were any of these decisions with the U.S. Attorney manuals and the other regulations and traditions that dictate how our Justice Department is supposed to operate? There are many, many serious questions that all fall within the ambit and purview of the United States of America and don't necessitate our going on wild goose chases thinking about Russia or China or Israel or the UK or any other place. I mean, we ought to get our own house in order first. And clearly, Sessions did not do that. Clearly, Comey did not do that. And I don't know what Sessions may have to hide, but I do know what Comey has to hide, and I do know what Mueller has to hide, and I do know what Rosenstein has to hide. And so it's time now for this acting Attorney General and whatever team may be already beyond this case, it's time for them to go all the way back to the beginning, which I think even predates October 23, 1997 on the Clinton Foundation investigation. And it's time to look into the ways in which elements in the Bush administration, HW&W, Clinton administration, then the Obama administration, were basically trying to destroy or to have the United States, in their words, evolve from being a constitutional nation state to being, a loyal proponent of globalism, and, oh, by the way, enrich the cronies and the donors along the way to the many tens and even hundreds of billions of dollars. That's what this is all about. This is about corruption. This is about fraud. This is about using this unregulated system of, in quotes, globalism to create vast fortunes that are kept onshore and offshore, and crazy schemes that are tough for people who don't have the expertise to understand. That's what this is all about. And there's actually also, we're going to get into it a little bit, there's a relationship here between what the Clinton Foundation has been doing and what GE was doing and other large multinationals, in that both are very complex organizations, GE much bigger than the Clinton Foundation. But when you make a decision that you're going to suddenly use regulations and approaches that are not authorized to, in quotes, account for your financial performance, whether you're for profit or not for profit, when you start doing that, and in the case of GE, selling securities to the public across state lines, you're committing fraud, accounting fraud, securities fraud, banking fraud, when the basic numbers for the business don't reflect the underlying reality of what's really going on with the business. Similarly, in a charity fraud, when you go and you say that you can do whatever you want around the world and you can hide all the payments that you make to the family and all the subsidy to the family, and hide hide the fact that these donations are being plucked out of foreign government coffers and plucked out of the deceiving public, small streams of money that turn into gigantic streams of money and instead be used to pay for political campaigns and other unauthorized activities. You're going to hide all that. You're just part of the fraudster community. You've got to be brought to heel.
Absolute, brought to heel, just like Hillary Clinton wanted to do with super predators, as she called them. Charles, I'm also very concerned with fraud and corruption within the Mueller investigation itself. It's strange to me that people think that Robert Mueller has this sort of unfettered mandate to he's like this hero to people who dislike Donald Trump, and nobody cares what he does with regard to illegal leaks of grand jury information. We just did a very special episode the other day with Michael Moore and Larry Klayman of freedomwatchusa.org. Larry's ongoing FOIA lawsuit against the special counsel's office has yielded even more emails, thousands of emails between the special counsel's office and various members of the press. And what we've seen is pretty strong evidence that they're just giving out this grand jury information, which is a crime. You're not allowed to do that, even to the press. And furthermore, they seem to be doing it in such a way that is utilizing the mainstream press to sway public opinion,
right,
and even the opinion of people in Congress. They read the news, they watch the newspaper, and if they create this national consensus that, you know, Russia did something and that there's a valid reason for this investigation, it's sort of the same thing as that dopey senator coming out and saying, everyone has the right to be believed. No, they don't. You can't just make up crap and say that's your right. It sounds nice. Does everyone have the right to $1 million? Because I'd like that too, but you don't have that right.
I think in Hollywood you have the right to make believe.
Make believe, right. That's what they've got, is the right to make believe. But in Washington, D.C. and in places where we're trying to uphold the law, I don't really think we want a special counsel's office that can meet every other person at Paul's restaurant and give out whatever information they want.
I agree. Well, in the interest of time, why don't we go back into the slide and progress to the next one?
Yes.
This is a 10-slide presentation. It's going to go faster than you think, and there actually aren't that many numbers in this one. There's a lot of words in this one.
You're like a doctor, Charles. This won't hurt me.
So this first story in the Hill, maybe we could pull that one up if that's okay, Jason, is pretty interesting. I mean, here's Donald Trump standing up, and I love people who articulate, or I like to see people who articulate a point of view, encounter amazing criticism for what they said, and then have the courage to stand up and say, no, actually I'm right and you're wrong. You can criticize me, you can yell me, but I'm still right. And I think on this one, facts have shown that on the Republican side, the Republicans who didn't embrace Trump made a mistake because they lost.
Yeah.
Republicans who embraced Trump mostly won. And we don't yet have enough information on all the House races and final information on the gubernatorial and other key races to know yet, you know, to do a, in quotes, scientific analysis of how many Republicans in significant races were up, how many ran from Trump, how many embraced Trump, and what was the result. We haven't done it yet. But here's Donald Trump saying, listen, those of you that asked for my help and embraced my help, you're going to be still in the political world. Others of you who did do that, and that fellow surprised me, the New Jersey guy, who spent, I think, $36 million of his own money, and I guess he has a lot of his own money. He thought that it was smarter in New Jersey to say, you know, I can criticize Trump, I can stand up to Trump, thinking that, you know, that's going to work, and it just doesn't work. If somebody wants someone to criticize Trump, they're going to hire the alleged child molester, Menendez, who got elected in New Jersey. And I mean, I don't understand how people could vote for that guy. I suspect that there's a tremendous amount of fraud that we don't yet understand, much more so than the tiny little number of Facebook ads that may have been purchased by Russian interests in the 2016 election. I think state by state.
It's not even fraud for Russia to purchase Facebook ads.
I know. I know. Then on to Marsha Blackburn. I want to give her a major league shout out because I try to go to Washington, D.C. as infrequently as possible. For some reason, I just don't really like it there. And when I got involved in this in earnest, her representatives in her office contacted me. I got a phone call out of the blue from 202 area code. I said, whoa, what's going on here? And it was somebody from the office, I won't mention the name, and that person really did. I mean, here I'm not from Tennessee. I actually like Tennessee. And this person calls me out of the blue and says, what are you trying to do? And many emails and conversations and a few visits. And Marsha Blackburn has a spine. Many of the people talk a big game down there in Washington, D.C. Marsha Blackburn said, you know what? I had a problem with charity fraud in my district. Some people refer to it as the Tennessee Tennessee charity cancer fraud. It was a complex fraud also in Texas, so other people call it the Texas fraud. But she complained about it, got the FTC to do something about it, and ultimately it wasn't prosecuted as aggressively as I would like to see it prosecuted, but it was dealt with. And she really got into action, put these letters together, sent them out to the FTC, IRS, and other places. And finally, it took 2 years,
Wow.
but instigated an investigation by July 2016, and her staff put together a fantastic report that we've linked before. And now the various fake news polls, and I didn't believe any of these polls, had, in the days leading up to the actual election, they had polls that said she was neck and neck. I saw a poll that said that she and her challenger or opponent, Bredesen, each had, I think it was 44% of the vote. I thought, how is that possible? I don't, you know, and I contacted somebody there. I said, you know, what's going on? Is this fake news? Right back, fake news. And
They
fake
told
news.
you it was
It's
fake news?
Fake news.
You just
And
can't count.
anyway, so she won, I believe, by 20 points.
Yeah, it's
and,
huge.
And it's wonderful to see that.
Yeah.
I also had, still have a friend from college I was involved in the Yale Political Union. She had preceded me as chairman of the Conservative Party, and she's still a friend, though she drifted off to being a senior Democrat lobbyist. And I mentioned to her when I was in Washington, D.C., I said, you know, this is what I'm doing. She said, well, who are you doing this with? And she said, well, Marsha Blackburn. And she gave me this knowing look, and she said, well, Charles, I mean, come on, you know, everybody in Washington, D.C., you know, it was like patting me on the head, hey, Charles. You know, everybody in Washington, D.C., you know, Marsha Blackburn, she doesn't really know what she's doing. And if you told me it was, you know, a more aggressive Republican, I'd say, all right, maybe that's interesting, but you're never going to get anywhere with that. We'll see about that. I'm not going to mention her name. She's very skilled at what she does, this lobbyist, and a good person. But Marsha Blackburn and her staff deserve, I mean, enormous kudos. And frankly, Donald Trump and his team, enormous kudos for supporting Marsha. And they lent a lot of support, many visits out to different cities and places in Tennessee. But she has achieved an amazing victory. And then in related news, everyone gives people a hard time about the trickle-down theory. But here's proof that the trickle-down theory actually works. This guy, Robert O'Rourke, who calls himself Beto, got, I think it was $68 million, coaxed primarily out of Hollywood celebrities and Silicon Valley types and stuff.
Huh.
And somebody did the math and figured out that how much money was spent for how many votes. And here, Paul Sadler raises, I don't know, in 2012, Paul Sadler raised $705,000. He got 3 million votes, so that's 22 cents a vote. This dude raises 69 million.
Wow.
And he gets 20.29. Each vote cost him $20. So where did all that money go? The trickle-down theory. It went from Hollywood to the consultants and the caterers and the private
But
jet.
none of those people voting got that $20.
None of them got that. No.
They got the shaft, is what they got.
I mean, it's really something. And here, I mean, here's a guy. I think there comes a certain point in your life, and I don't know when it is. You know, perhaps when you're 14, maybe. It's probably right before you get your driver's license or your learner's permit at 16. You probably could think about putting the skateboard away. You know, and you shouldn't. You know, you're not cool when you skateboard in to you know, a rally as Beto O'Rourke in your early 40s or whatever he is, and you're certainly not cool dropping the F-bomb.
Yeah, that was
in a concession speech. I mean, it's just that you don't
the
do
end
that.
of his career, I think.
I don't know. In contrast, no, I think the Hollywood people are, Beto in 2020. We could prep him up. I mean, everyone loses the first time. Obama lost, I think, the first time he ran for Congress.
Bill Clinton lost the first time, didn't he?
I think Bill Clinton may have lost, or he
Governor.
sort of lost a race.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, it's just proof positive, tongue-in-cheek, that the trickle-down theory does in fact work. And also proof positive that people in Hollywood might be paid too much. It's possible. As far as, this is interesting, the LA Times piece, that this is a piece claiming that Donald Trump was telling confidence right before the election that Ryan is to blame for a lot of these setbacks. And I have to say, as appealing as Paul Ryan was on paper, he's an accountant, to me anyway, an accountant, he understands finance. He was supposed to help us fix our government deficit problem, our structural deficits. He talked a big game in Congress. He's been in Congress since 1998. And in 20 years, we're in a horrible position now. As we previous shows, we went through the level of our debt, our structural deficits, and I think President Trump was absolutely correct to blame Paul Ryan. And I think back to the race that the 2010 elections, and I guess that was the Tea Party elections, and he, I think in that time frame, went from being a committee chairman further up the ranks. I forget when he became speaker. He was, of course, Mitt Romney's vice presidential candidate, and it's as far as I've been saying, he can claim credit for these small victories, these procedural victories, but he didn't repeal and replace Obamacare. He didn't fix the structural deficit. It never seemed possible to actually get any. He didn't get the wall built, and at a certain point in time, you got to say to somebody, "You're a loser."
What is he doing now, Charles?
He's retiring.
I mean, isn't he like 50? How old is he?
He might not even be 50.
Not even 50.
Yeah, well, I retired at 46. So
it's good work if you can get it.
It's fun. Now this, I think, you got to give kudos. President Trump is the Jedi master of Twitter trolling. I mean, this tweet here, I don't know if people saw it earlier in the day. I mean, it may have changed. In all fairness, Nancy Pelosi deserves to be chosen Speaker of the House by the Democrats. I mean, this is fantastic because, of course, he doesn't really want Nancy Pelosi to be Speaker of the House. He just wants that trial balloon out there. And with this tweet, he's embracing, working. He's bipartisanship. He's reaching across the aisle to a woman, giving a woman respect when other members of the Democratic Party are trashing a woman. They want to put a white man or a minority man in charge of the party. Here's Donald Trump. I mean, this is just epic trolling. It's fantastic.
He's up early, too. I don't understand how he wakes up so early. He's eating Kentucky Fried Chicken.
It's probably, has a tub of Kentucky Fried Chicken and half a gallon of Coca-Cola and gets to work. So if we go back into it, this zero hedge piece, I mean, one of the things I learned in doing mergers and acquisitions and negotiations is that the first thing you decide in a negotiation is if you're going to negotiate with somebody, is it worth the effort? I mean, if the person you're going to negotiate with is never going to keep his or her word, doesn't have the authority to make a deal, is not interested, we're just wasting your time, you may as well not do it. Now, here the Democrats immediately, having in the campaign said, the American public is sick and tired of the bickering and the partisan infighting, so Democrats, we're not going to launch investigations, so they wait until, midnight the day of election day, and then immediately, here we go. We're going to go after his tax returns, we're going to do this, Schiff's going to do that, and they're threatening immediately Donald Trump with a slew. Every House committee will now have different pretexts to investigate. And Donald Trump is correct to point out that the Senate has an oversight function too. And my attitude would be on it, I think the Senate should go full bore, because we do not control, or his party does not control the House come January, whatever the right day is, whether it's the 1st or the next day. They're not going to be able to do anything for 2 years. And so the House will be out of control, and you just got to let the House do what the House is going to do. But meanwhile, you do what you're going to do, and the Senate do what it's going to do. And meanwhile, you remember that it's only November 7th, and you still do control the House. You still do control the Senate through the end of this year. So you can get a lot done. I'm all for, especially as we, get ready for November 15th. I'm all for using the balance of this year to sort out the Clinton Foundation, sort out the donations, sort out the charity land, have lame duck sessions. Democrats ought to be really worried about not having lame duck sessions, because if they go off, the president can perhaps make appointments that would be tougher to make next year.
What's a lame duck session? Is someone who's a lame duck in Congress?
Yeah, I mean, the current Congress will change radically at least the House will change radically in 2019. So
the people who've been voted out but are sitting there.
Yeah, they could still be called upon to vote and be pushed around a little bit. And I'm all for holding a bunch of votes, right through the balance of the year. Let's tax cuts for the middle class, and the lower class. Let's do infrastructure reform. Let's get a whole bunch of votes on the record, and let the Democrats, if they want to, vote it down. On the other hand, maybe there's a chance, maybe miracles happen, and we get a bunch of things passed, so that we'll have more to do in 2019. Let's get that wall authorized and other things done.
I thought they had the wall authorized. When are they going to build that wall?
I don't know.
And where's this caravan? They're taking forever. They're really walking.
So then, this story in the Daily Mail is hilarious. If you've watched the career of Elijah Cummings and others, now the Democrats are strutting around saying that what they suddenly, all of a sudden, what they care about, these Democrats are going to be chairmen, is they care about corruption. Some of these Democrats, who are out of power, there's some Republicans, many Republicans are corrupt too, but to seriously believe that the American public is going to take Elijah Cummings' word that he's finally going to care about corruption, you got to be kidding me. Looking at his past in Baltimore, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if Trump opened up a series of investigations into Chi-Fi, Spy, Die, whatever. Exactly. All these people there. So, Charles, what would happen, let's say, if they did assign an actual special counsel, like someone on the order of a Larry Klayman, who started investigating and found corruption that caused some of the Democrats in the House to have to resign? It just gets replaced by another Democrat, or what happens?
I'm not an expert on that. I think that it really depends. There have been members of Congress who've been convicted, and I don't know if they've served in Congress, but there's some very questionable people who managed to stay around. I think there's a member of Congress who was impeached as a judge. And then became a member of Congress.
Wow. So hey, you did so good at the corruption on the local level. Why don't you hit the big time?
Right. We've heard that this is good news that Jim Jordan is going to try to has put his name in to be the minority leader, which would be the lead Republican challenging whoever becomes the Speaker of the House next year, assuming that the Democrats in the end do have the votes to control the House, which I think looks likely. But this guy Jordan is to me very impressive. I think what we should do, the members of the Crowdsource community, we might want to chip in and get the guy a blazer or something like that.
Well, wasn't he like a high school coach? So this is a major wardrobe upgrade for him from sweatshorts and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, but in the winter it gets kind of cold there. It's, this Keith Ellison result here, this is just ridiculous.
It really is shameful. I'm amazed that any woman could vote for this guy. Any person could vote for this guy, but why? How can we have someone, what happened to these allegations from these women who say that Keith Ellison beat them bloody?
Well, they're certainly not going to get prosecuted in Minnesota.
Jeez, that's crazy.
By the state officials. But I think abuse of vulnerable people, be they women or men or homosexual, bisexual, transgender, whatever, vulnerable people, their abuse, children especially, is something that needs to be taken very seriously by a set of governments in this country that spends $6 trillion plus per year.
Right.
Surely, if we could spend $6 trillion a year, we could find enough money to try to protect vulnerable people, and to have this example stand. That somebody like this guy, where credible allegations have been made, were made at the time, and there's records and evidence, and everyone has a right to be believed, except for this accuser.
Well,
and now this guy, and he's not just only going to be Attorney General. I think he's Vice Chair of the Democratic Party.
Exactly.
This is
he's an arch criminal, and he's the first guy to be sworn into Congress, not on the Bible, not on the Constitution, but the Quran. I say that not as a point of religious matter, but the Quran is a book of laws, and if he holds the laws of the Quran above the laws of the Constitution, that's a problem as far as being in Congress, I believe.
Well, I would focus on him. I'd focus on the fact that the Me Too movement needs to stand up. If it wants to be taken seriously, it needs to
demand that he be removed from that position.
Right. And then we have, I was going to suggest, I know you've been very busy, that, International House of Pancakes, they were going to call themselves International House of Burgers, and now it's whatever they're remodeling.
What happened with that?
They're back to pancakes, but I saw this story, and this is just, I've been in Waffle Houses. If you like breakfast, they're amusing to go to.
Wow.
But here's a guy,
underwear-clad guy.
Let's think of the decision-making process. You're sitting there in Alabama one evening, and you probably have, 450 beers, and then you go out to the meth lab, get some meth, and take your clothes off and figure, I'll climb into a Waffle House in my underwear, and then fall asleep. And then you're sitting there minding your business, getting a lard-covered 8-egg omelet with potatoes. Well, they actually have lard in Waffle House. Some of them, they used to have them back in 2007 when I went into a few of them. Yeah,
how do you know that?
It's on the menu as an extra.
Lard is a thing to eat.
You want some lard with that?
What is lard?
I don't know. That's not something I'm going to hit. So lard and grits and 8-egg omelets and
Lard is one of those things that you've heard about all the time associated with a derriere, but I don't think I've ever eaten any lard.
Yeah, and then they don't have this on the menu, but I remember as a kid being, look at this guy coming out of this.
Wow. How did the person with the cell phone know to be recording? Are they in league with this lard-eating waffle ceiling dropper?
You drive your semi into the parking lot there, and you're on the road for 200 miles or whatever, and you're having the coffee, and next thing you know, a guy in his underwear falls out of the ceiling.
I bet you those are two Alabama residents plotting to get onto Sunday with Charles.
But before you go to the next link, the funny thing here is that the competitor, IHOP, believe it or not, I saw this, I want to say on either CNBC or it was Fox Business. They had the CEO of IHOP, or the restaurant chain that owns IHOP, talking about how they're doing a special promotion of this movie Grinch. And so they've decided that it's a good idea to offer Grinch pancakes at IHOP that are green.
No, that's not a good idea.
Green pancake, I don't know, green and anything having to do with bread. Call me a greenist. But I'm not going to eat any green bread or green pancakes. It's just, ugh.
No, I agree. It's not a good idea. Is that the same guy who decided to throw away a 100-year-old brand and name it the International House of Burgers?
Yeah, probably.
Why is that guy not fired? He could go work for GE.
He probably
too many ideas at work or
he probably hired Teneo to get some.
I mean, that's just a terrible idea.
And then this, to close it all off, this is actually pretty funny. It's sad and funny. So here we have a Republican who just happens to have an evangelist who owned a brothel in Nevada.
Dead.
And who died, but nonetheless defeated a Democrat.
Oh,
so I mean, if that's possible, if it's possible for an evangelist, brothel-owning Republican to defeat a Democrat in Nevada, why are we picking people like this Dean Heller, who lost, it seems, to whatever her name is, lost the Senate race? But this just tells you more than I need to know about Nevada. I mean, it's just, what is wrong?
What's going on with the fire there? And they burned it down to get the...
I don't know.
What is it? There's a lot of articles coming up now, Charles. There are robot brothels opening up. That's pretty weird.
I'm not going to touch that one.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
But speaking of Hillary Clinton, we have, there's always, for those of you who are not yet into the Kremlinology of Sunday with Charles and closing in, we changed this little display over here of things, and we've introduced, because we're getting closer and closer to November 15th, 2018, and here's Hillary, doing her business in Chappaqua on her What Happened book. But she's really going to be jonesing for some white wine, and so we have the glass here. And Donald Trump, if you're nice to Donald Trump, he doesn't drink, so you're not going to have to share this bottle. You can have the whole bottle.
That's where he gets his energy from. Right. 71 years of not drinking. Yeah. He's never had a hangover, I guess.
So we're going to actually fly through this. People are saying that, accountants don't have to practice law, accountants don't have to understand law. That's what lawyers are for. And we've been trying to amass for you, and we've put some of these links up before, so there's no need to put them up, no need, Jason, for you to hit them now. I'll just point to them. This is a link to a very lengthy analysis that I put out September 6th, I think it was, 2016. You don't need to pull it up. But that gives you a lot of background on why I believed then and why I know now these Clinton charities have never been lawfully organized or operated. And this is a brief from the IRS in 1985, and it's, you know, just bulletproof law and regulation that if you're going to put an organization, it has to be an organization, into the position of standing in the shoes of government, it's not allowed to engage in illegal activities, right?
No one's allowed
but
to.
especially a charity, right?
Yeah.
Especially a charity. I mean, there's an in this publication, I think, and we won't pull it up, but there's an interesting, believe it or not, test case where an organization affiliated with the mafia put in an application to try to be a charity. It's like, nah, you can't do that.
You see, that's very telling, Charles. I have a feeling that there is a contingent of people who have identified the fact that these tax-exempt corporations are just not well regulated, right. And so they can, whatever you're doing, you can get 40% more money by not paying taxes.
Well, I, without revealing who this is, we are working on this matter with various world experts, including some who are experts in stopping money laundering. And one of them made an offhanded comment to me that I'll share with the group. We were talking about something. He said, "Well, I didn't know this. The going rate for laundering money is 22%."
Whoa!
And it makes sense to me. If you've got dirty money, and let's say you got 100 million of dirty money, and somebody says to you, "I can make that 100 million of dirty money into real money. There ought to be a haircut. You should be willing to pay a fee." 22% is a pretty steep fee, but on the other hand, think of what you're doing here. You're committing a gigantic crime, right? And you're sharing, you've got risk as the launderer, and it would seem to me that fairness, thinking through the concept of what is fair in an illegal activity is interesting. That's the kind of thing that will let the PhDs at Yale and Harvard and Princeton and Columbia and wherever write 25 Theses. Maybe Chelsea can write that. She could write when she's serving out the balance of her life in prison. But so you think about a charity, you're right to say it, Jason. Banks, in theory, are regulated, corporations are regulated, individuals are regulated, investment funds are regulated, hedge funds are regulated, one way or another. Charities really, they're regulated, they're rhinos, regulations in name only, right? I mean, they're out there, but we see the Stockman guy, he's now going away for 10 years over 1.25 million. And he was he's a Republican, former House of Representatives guy. We've got Corinne Brown in prison for 4 years, over 800,000, a lesser fine. Clintons, they get to swan around. They're going on a speaking tour. They're probably, just with their agents and managers saying, no, I can't go to that speaking tour over there in a Learjet. I mean, I don't do Learjets. You got to get me state of the art. I want
Gulfstream.
A Gulfstream, man. I want one of those supersonic, whatever the new jets are, that can go to Tokyo. That's what I want. But Bill, you're only going to Chicago.
I don't think you can fly supersonic to Chicago. So that 22% number is interesting, Charles. If someone could devise a fairly automated way of laundering money through, I don't know, cryptocurrency, that might be a very desirable scheme for criminals, wouldn't it?
Oh, that's funny you should mention that. So I went to a brief vignette. I went to we didn't talk about this in the last thing. I went to the Harvard Business School capital fundraising thing, and it was very well done, very nice, met a lot of nice people. Mm-hmm. And as I was cruising around the room, this guy waved to me, and as I got closer, he could read my name. Hey, Charles, don't you remember me? And I didn't. And so we started talking, and other people there talking, and they said what they did, and I said, well, what do you do? And he said, well, I'm running a hedge fund that's focused on cryptocurrencies. And he said, "What do you do?" And I said, "Well, I specialize in exposing complex frauds." And it was literally, yeah, exactly, it was like, "See ya!" What? It's hysterical.
I do not believe that cryptocurrency is inherently fraudulent, but I do believe that because it is so new and so technologically misunderstood by most people, it's ripe for fraudsters.
Oh, yeah. But so this is a section, and if we would hit this link, Jason, I want to show people that there is indeed a document you can look at, and I've only excerpted this link here.
Yeah.
I've only excerpted 2.5 pages from this 50-odd page document. It is exactly 50 pages long. This is the kind of stuff. Notice at the bottom left, what do we see there, Jason? Copyright 2018 AICPA. Now this is the real organization that Eric Hansen is the chairman of, okay? This is the type of stuff their organization does. They put together, multiple pieces of paper like that, like this, they keep them updated. And if we look at the very top of this page, it gives you the title of the document, Audit Evidence, Specific Considerations for Selected Items. It's a little dry. It doesn't have the same ring of, I don't know, pick a title of a great book, The Firm, whatever.
The Misadventures of Truman the Tiger.
Right. But this is the type of stuff that the AICPA puts out and summarizes for the accounting profession to make sure that you know there are rules. And these rules, you'll see, were effective for audits of financial statements for periods ending on or after December 15th, 2012, meaning that for BKD's final audit for the Clinton Foundation was for an audit for financial statements for a period that ended on December 31st, 2012. So this thing applied to BKD's final audit. If we go back in then to the slide, I pull up, starting in paragraph, I don't know what number it was, 16 perhaps, yeah, 16.16. It says here, you've got to design and perform audit procedures to identify litigation, claims, and assessments involving the entity that may give rise to a risk of material misstatement. Right? What does that mean? You got to think about the Clinton Foundation and ask yourself, if Andy Kessel is walking into your office and saying, here are the books and records of the Clinton Foundation, but he doesn't give you any of the international books and records, or he gives you books and records that aren't books and records, and he doesn't give you the real bank accounts, doesn't give you all the forms, doesn't show you the legal documents. You probably, if you're like a little third grader who wants to be an accountant, you'll probably say, in the way that little kids do and they're so cute, "Daddy, that's a fraud. Those people are liars." Little kids, when they say lie, it's like,
yeah, big deal.
Well, no, it's like 3 or 4 vowels instead of the lie is one. It's liar. So, and to figure that out, what you're supposed to do, and you see this B in red is the importance of obtaining from management a description and evaluation of litigation, claims, and assessments that existed at the date of the financial statements being reported on, and during the period from the date of the financial statements to the date the information is furnished, and including an identification of those matters referred to legal counsel. So it is bright line, crystal clear that BKD had a responsibility in 2012 to be familiar with any sort of legal claims that, let's say, Simpson Thacher might have been advising the Clinton Foundation on, and we have records of all that we're going to show you in a second. And that the auditor, BKD, should have been looking at the correspondence between the entity and its external legal counsel. That's so important. Whenever I've bought and sold companies, you want to see the correspondence file, because typically the correspondence file is brutal.
It's like, whoa, there's something horrible going on.
Right,
Like, what's this?
Yeah, and it ends up being settled for cents on the dollar. But you look at the whole file, and you want to see the whole file. You want to see the internal emails back and forth, how people reacted. You'll see an email, "Well, you better not tell them about this murder." Right? And then you want to see legal bills, legal expense accounts and invoices from external legal counsel. We're going to show you one in a second from Simpson Thacher that was made available through Wikipedia, right? So, and then what you want to do, you actually want to go through a process for these accounting firms of contacting any external lawyers that may have been used by management. And we'll show you how you do that on the next page. Okay? This is really fun, actually.
Ooh, look who's emailing.
Yeah, this is the correct name of the firm, and I should remember this exactly, the Podfather. The name of this law firm is Simpson Thacher, spelled T-H-A-C without a T. There's not a T in the middle there. There's a spelled wrong here by Chelsea Clinton. Huh. Thatcher. So if we hit this link, Jason.
First one.
And these links are available to you in the crowd, okay? Mm-hmm. This is something that was provided on the 3rd of November 2011, okay? If we hit the attachment at the top, okay, and look at this document request list. Okay, this is 6 pages, and read it, so we're not going to go through it now, but it's an incredible list of things. They want to see all the documents, list of all entities, okay? Certified copy of the charter, it goes on and on and on. All the things that they asked for. I don't know if this is the only request that was made. Okay, this is just stuff that's up on WikiLeaks. It's probably not the whole Simpson-Thacher file. But clearly Simpson-Thacher asked for, look at this, list of corporate, partnership, and joint venture affiliations. This is, a wish list, auditor's letters to management for 3 years, and any written responses by management. So Simpson-Thacher had a lot of information, and it says we have the amended restated bylaws for these entities down here, but I don't see in this request list any request for international documents, and they should have made such a request, making me wonder whether the assignment to study the Clinton Foundation was circumscribed, whether they got together and said, if you start looking at the international stuff, we're sunk. So why don't you just confine your work to the domestic stuff, and let's assume that we're doing everything hunky-dory internationally.
Sounds like an audit.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
that must be fine.
We're going to put the problems over here, because they're really big, and we don't want you flying around the world to, say, Australia to find Alexander Downer's crooked deals, because we're going to use him later to finger the Trump people. We got to keep that hunky-dory. So one of the people leading the team is this Victoria Bjorklund. Notice that's her name, and here's how Chelsea Clinton, I don't know whether she had a PhD by this point. This is how she spells the name. It's wrong.
Wait a minute now. So where's the proper spelling of it?
Here. And here's the book that she wrote. Now this is an interesting book. Before we get to this book, Jason, how much does it cost to get Hillary Clinton's What Happened now in the used market?
Oh, well, let's take a look at that. I think it was like $1.06 for the hardcover book.
And generally, the lower the price of something, the less valuable it is, the less the market tends to appreciate it. Is that what you think?
I think supply and demand sounds like what you're talking about. I'm no economist, Charles, but...
But you stayed in a Quality Inn or whatever it is, a La Quinta Inn.
Right. So what is that? How does that saying go? Oh, look at that. It's interesting because just below the horrendous abomination of a book, we have this wonderful film by our friend Ramsey Dennison, What Happened in Vegas. People can get that. But it looks like you can purchase this book for $1.03, Charles. It's going down faster than GE.
Yeah, so a book for $1.03. I mean, that would be, how I remember, this is an area when I didn't do due diligence. I remember when I bought the only co-op, a small co-op that I liked, one of the features that I really appreciated was it had a fireplace, and I thought this is really nice.
You just read my mind.
So I went ahead and I was really excited, but I wasn't given an opportunity to really check the apartment thoroughly. It was in early '80s. It was just mania days. So I buy the thing, and I went out and I said I better get a starter log. Because I get some wood. As I go out to the local deli, I get a starter log, I get some wood, I come back to the apartment, I take this nice grill that's covering the fireplace off. There's no fireplace. It's just a grill, a fake grill covering the wall. Yeah. But look how expensive a Duraflame log is. Is this just one?
You
could buy 13 books
Exactly, for less than the price of the Duraflame. Also, these Duraflame logs are pretty toxic, I think. So
Well,
this is the first time we're going to go ahead and endorse what happened by Hillary Rodham Clinton as you're getting your winter residence ready for the cold months that are approaching. You might want to consider buying a few of these and throwing them on the fire.
Is it free shipping too, or no?
I don't know. It is. No, probably not for
you're Prime,
$1.03. Yeah.
If you're Prime, it's free.
I don't think for $1.03, because that's like, there's an eBay kind of a section to Amazon, but we digress, Charles.
Well, but no, we don't, because here we're going to hit Amazon for Victoria Bjorklund's book, and this gives you a sense of a book. This is a legal series. Look how much this book costs. $899.99. Now, why they don't just sell it for $9? It's not like you're going into the bookstore and you're going to trick somebody from thinking the book is expensive by saying, you know what? If we say the price is $899.99, they won't realize they're spending $900.
Are the first 850 pages of it $1 bills? What the hell is that?
Well, it really is. This is a book. You see, her name is written first. You see it's spelled correctly there, and. This is actually quite a good book. It's a lengthy book, and it's updated and whatever. And it's the, detailed book on New York nonprofit law and practice, written by Victoria Bjorklund. So either she found a ghostwriter and knows absolutely nothing about this, which I think is unlikely, or she's one of the world's experts on New York nonprofit corporation law. So in about half an hour, she should have been able to figure out that this Clinton Foundation was an epic fraud.
Huh. Perhaps she was busy giving Chelsea spelling lessons.
Well, we're going to get to that in a second. So you see, this is a book that is much more expensive than a Duraflame log.
Yeah, don't put that on the fire.
So then we look at this. Look, if we hit this. All right, and let's see which one I wanted here. There's just a whole bunch of interactions back and forth about having a special. Yeah, well, this is well, yeah. I mean, this is just for people who want to look at it later. You could trace the evolution of how this project came together. Look at this. This is a very significant time period. This is November 1st, 2011. This is before the November 15th, 2011 deadline for filing your federal tax returns for 2010 and your state tax returns in New York and elsewhere. This is a law firm, Simpson Thacher. I don't see BKD copied on any of this work, studying carefully what's going on, what the hell is going on with the Clinton Foundation, just as they're putting in false and materially misleading tax returns, the so-called 990s for the Clinton Foundation, and failing to inform their donors and the regulators of material adverse changes in the Clinton Foundation. Because this is just, remember, 2010 is when they did all these fake New Chai and New AHG and New Clinton Global Initiative. They're doing all these false applications for federal tax exemption and saying that these entities they were creating were not successor entities to predecessor entities. So here's a little bit of the email trail. And when people are saying there's no real reason for the Clintons to transact all of their personal and government business on secret servers and secret devices, because these type of incriminating emails likely would have been emails that found their way into the government system, and likely would be emails and other emails that are missing that are on these secret servers and devices that were possibly bleach bit while she was Secretary of State. Because of course during this entire period she's Secretary of State.
Do we know which email address is Chelsea's?
We do actually. It's AJ66 is one of the earlier ones. But what we're going to show you in a second. This is for people to look at their leisure. For those who want to say that there are no emails to consider, there is a basket of emails to consider. And this is a funny one here. Hit this Clinton Foundation legal. This is this guy, Scott Curran.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Right.
And here it is. Hi, John. I just want to look at the text. Just want to reintroduce myself. I work with Bruce, who also serves as general counsel, on Foundation legal matters. I'm the Foundation's full-time in-house attorney and help manage day-to-day matters related to all initiative work except for CHI, which has its own counsel. Okay? And I do all this work on 111 South Wacker Drive in Chicago, Illinois. Now, you know, I'm not going to make fun of the name of the drive. It's a famous drive in Chicago. But, you know, you're sitting there and you've got this gigantic complex in Little Rock with a penthouse and a massage parlor in it and swimming pool and all this kind of stuff, all this extra office space. You got Chai's got space in Massachusetts, which it shouldn't have. You've got the New York offices, the secret office downtown 77 Water Street. What in the hell is the general counsel of the Clinton Foundation, deputy general counsel? Why are they or assistant general counsel, keeping the books and records for this complex enterprise in Chicago, of all places? You know, did they tell the Attorney General's office in Little Rock and in New York and in Massachusetts that actually the person who's really doing the legal work and doesn't have a conflict, because Bruce Lindsay still, I think, had an affiliation with an outside law firm, you know, that person, the trustees who made a decision, because they don't want the truth to necessarily come out that easily, to have all these important books and records kept in this remote office in Chicago. You know, and this is the guy, this Scott Curran was a graduate of the first Clinton School of Public Service, which, you know, you got to really, I'd love to get the other names of people who made that decision. And then he's the person, of course, who is teaching the class that...
Jonathan Safran.
Right, this is the same guy.
Peter W. Smith. That's what I was going to say. So what is going on here, Charles? This guy is connected to Jonathan Safran, who we have asked the question, was there someone in that hotel room with Peter W. Smith? I tried quite aggressively to contact Jonathan Safran, and he was quite difficult to get a hold of.
But if we can stand it, he's also, Scott, a lawyer who decided that you could create this Alliance for a Healthier Generation, February 22nd, 2010, and lie on the, lie on the application for federal tax exemption and say you're not a successor organization when you were formed in May of 2000, I think it was 5, right? And there's so many flaws. And this guy's on the board of the Alliance for a Healthier Generation, and he's still your assistant general counsel. I mean, it's just the decisions that were made here. There is no grown-up at the Clinton Foundation who says, look, you know, this isn't some little game that it's all about protecting the Clinton family. There are actual laws. We're sitting on top of, we have responsibility at the Clinton Foundation for protecting the 8 years of information about what really did happen when Bill was president. That is the property of the United States of America, we the people. It's not Clinton property. And, you know, by all of these crazy decisions, these are reckless decisions.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. We joke quite a lot, but this guy, Scott Curran, he's directly connected to the Clinton Foundation. He's emailing John Podesta. Peter W. Smith, he's researching, trying to find these emails. He's been a thorn in the side of the Clintons forever. Started that fund for Troopergate whistleblowers. Now he's pursuing the emails. Conceivably, these emails could sink the whole ship. So what is going on?
Well, if we go back into the slide for a sec, because it's really, we're going to get to the real juice.
Okay.
So if you go, let's see, to this one here, yeah, this is what happens. This link here is what happens when I misspelled Simpson Thatcher, and up came all these emails, 7 emails, and we don't need to do it now. Or actually,
AJ66 at NYU.edu.
Yeah, but let's start here. Look at this. Is October 16th, 2008. If you hit that first one,
Steiner.
This is Joshua Steiner at the Quadrangle Group. Look at who he's emailing around to. He's emailing to Robert Reich, Larry Summers, president of Harvard, Roger Ferguson, chairman of TII-CREF, Laura Tyson, I think. Bob Rubin at Citigroup Bank. These are the CEO of Xerox.
Who's this at BarackObama.com?
John Podesta there. Somebody at Wilmer Hale, right? And this is to have this meeting. Now, this is October 16th, 2008, before the election. Okay, and if you go down the page a little bit, Bill Daley, a very famous guy, in advance of me, we're going to talk about the transition economic team's work. The election hasn't happened yet, right? And this is what they're focused on doing. It's a lengthy email or objectives. They want to keep it secret. You keep on going down to the bottom of this email. Where is this meeting held in 2008 in October?
111 Wacker Street?
No. The confidentiality, you want to keep it all confidential. Logistics, here we go. Yeah, a little bit further up.
425 Lexington Avenue.
Right. The meeting will take place in the offices of Simpson, Thatcher, Misspelled, and Bartlett. But that is their office, 425 Lexington
How
Avenue.
the hell could they be misspelling their own
Well,
law firm?
this is not from somebody at Simpson Thatcher. This is from somebody at Quadrangle Group, which I believe, if it's the same Quadrangle Group, is that guy Ratner was involved, the friend of Mike Bloomberg, and I think he's the one who created Quadrangle. If it's the same Quadrangle. But the point of it is that here's Simpson Thatcher, and it's a big law firm with a lot of powerful people, very much intimately involved in the transition, holding meetings at its offices Friday, October 17th in New York City. And here we have the fable that Hillary Clinton and the Clintons and the Podestas had not thought about Hillary Clinton joining the administration as Secretary of State. Here we have the fable that memorandum of understanding, which Valerie Jarrett, I think, signed on November 16th, 2008, that somebody, whoever drafted that thing, could have any real knowledge of the Clinton Foundation without, let's say, being connected to Simpson Thatcher, who did have real knowledge about the Clinton Foundation. So the Simpson Thatcher's role in the transition, Simpson Thatcher's role in failing to expose the Clinton Foundation fraud for what it was when they were on the inside doing that work, is an area that I think is rich with potential for this acting attorney general to look into. So you shouldn't be able, as a globally prominent law firm, you shouldn't be lending the cover of your name and attorney-client privilege to allowing a fraud like this Clinton Foundation thing to be covered up, not fully exposed during the confirmation process of Hillary Clinton and then during her tenure as Secretary of State. I think there ought to be, inside Simpson Thatcher, there ought to be people who say, yeah, we want to make a lot of money, we want to have powerful clients, but we also don't want to destroy a fantastic firm. And I have mentioned before that after high school, I had a job as a proofreader there for a summer, and it was a fine firm there, and I have friends there still. But this is something that came out of the blue. I only saw this the last 48 hours.
Wow.
Let's go back in, though, to the email. Then we go
to the email or to the slides?
We can look here at the slide. Sorry. This is another one from this link here. Here it is from Chelsea to John Podesta to Bruce Lindsay and to Terry McAuliffe. Now, let me take a step backward and explain something. The way I understand attorney-client privilege, right? If I'm the attorney and you're my client and we want to preserve attorney-client privilege, you can't have somebody in the meeting who is, let's say, a hooker or
anybody.
Or anybody. I'm just saying,
why'd you bring her to the meeting?
Right. The second you bring somebody who has no connection, you destroy your attorney-client privilege, right?
What if it's a robot hooker, Charles?
Those laws. There's another book for Chelsea to write in prison. All right. So here we have an email from Chelsea on the 20th of November 2011, and the first question is, I'm not sure whether Chelsea was a Clinton Foundation trustee by then. She might have been. Okay, maybe. John Podesta certainly was not. Okay, John Podesta, I don't know what his roles were inside government or what. He was not. He's never been officially mentioned in Clinton Foundation documents as having any role. So what was he doing in the meeting?
That's strange, isn't it?
Right. And then Bruce Lindsay was the CEO. Terry McAuliffe was the director. So it's all fine to have your lawyer, Simpson Thatcher, in meetings certainly with Bruce Lindsay and with Terry, but not with John Podesta, and maybe with Chelsea. But look at the text. We will be having a private and confidential oral debrief. This is 11/20/2011 with this lawyer, Misspelled. My father has cataract surgery, and Bruce Lindsay. It makes the most sense for us to meet in the Clinton home. Bill Clinton is not an officer or director of the Clinton Foundation on November 20th, 2011. He shouldn't have been in that meeting. You destroy the attorney-client privilege, I would argue, by having him in that room, unless Simpson Thatcher was acting for the Clinton family, in which case, you'd have to think that one through. But who was Simpson Thacher actually working for here? Who was paying Simpson Thacher's bills? I think the foundation was paying the bills. Why was Bill Clinton in this meeting? And then what they're trying to do here is they've brought in Simpson Thacher to make this document request list and then to give an oral debrief. In other words, they're clever enough, they don't want a written document going out to everybody summarizing the first bit of their work. They just want to give you an oral debrief so they can say, well, we didn't provide any finished product thing to you on November 20th. We have the later drafts, which probably reflect taking out concerns that Simpson Thacher didn't want people to see in writing, nor did the Clintons. So then, and this is from, of course, Chelsea.
And what's with AJ66? Why isn't it like CC? And I mean, when was she born? 1980 something.
Who knows? You know,
But
long
that
ago.
Seems like a very coded,
probably the name
weird
of
email.
Who knows? And who knows how many other secret emails she has. But then this is an interesting thing. Here we have, if you hit the first one, this we've shown people before, but to make it easy, there's so much information that we've had out for people. Okay, here's the, let's think, what is this? Victoria. Okay, this is a response December 9th, Friday, December 9th, 2011, to an email from, if we go down it a little bit, I think the email from, yeah, here we go. This is on, from Bjorklund, Simpson Thacher copying Chelsea, and it says we completed 38 interviews, okay? We prepared an organization chart of the Clinton Foundation and its affiliates and other offices and activities of the president. So wait, why are you doing that? And why should the Clinton Foundation pay for that work? We looked at this crazy Doug Band memorandum. We did other stuff. And then keep going down. We redacted and reformatted the theme sheets and delivered them to the two of you to Chelsea for your confidential information. So there's information we don't know about yet. A draft governance review that we have, a sample COO position. We spent 298.5 hours on that, and the discounted fee is $176,000, below the $300,000. Since the Clinton Foundation's taxable year is a calendar year that ends December 31st, 11, I thought you might want a portion of this total bill billed and paid this year. In that way, we and you could, for optics purposes, spread the billing and payment cycle over two Form 990 reporting years, 2011, 2012. You can't do that. I mean, this is
a creative lawyer.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that maybe by 2011 and 2012, what's his name, Eric Hansen and Mike Wolf and others would have realized that, in theory, the Clinton Foundation is operating on the accrual method of accounting. What that means is you match up expenses for a period with revenues for a period. You don't do this. You don't say, well, I spent all this money, did all this work in 2011. Let's say that we did half the work in 2011 and the other half next year.
That's extremely cruel accounting.
Right, exactly. So, and look at the title of this person. This isn't Victoria Bjorklund, fell off a turnip truck, only did one half of my first semester of law school. She's the partner, she's the head, and in fact the founder, I believe, of the Exempt Organizations Group and co-chair, of course, of the Diversity Committee, whatever that is. So, so this is a suggestion.
They doxed their cell phone number on WikiLeaks.
So if you go further up,
I guess that $800 book is not selling that well.
But look, so this is Bill on his Bruce on his CrackBerry says Victoria, and I don't know who Anna James is.
That's got to be AJ66.
There you go.
Because when it fills in the name on the computer automatically?
Right, that's probably what it is. There you go.
So what the hell is the 66? That's got to be the year. Who is Anna James and is she born in 1966?
I don't know. We'll figure it out. But here's Lindsay's coming firing right back saying, thank you for the update. As you suggested, please bill us this year for the governance portion of your bill and next year. I mean, was there any oversight of this? Did BKD look at this before they issued their audit? Did Michael Wolf look at this? And by November 16th, 2015, when he redid the financial statements, the tax returns for 2011 and 2012,
That's what put the all-encompassing hole in Truman's face. He was like, oh.
So if we go back in, the other link is also interesting because it will show you the bill. So I think it's the next one down. I don't know if you hit the first link or the second link when you did.
Yes, this is private and confidential invoice.
Yeah, all right. So
do that show to Eric Hansen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If we hit the attachment, the top, we get to see a Simpson Thatcher bill. They always look, these are always look good. Doesn't that look good? Nice letterhead. Okay, and then, let's stop here for a second. There is no such thing as the William Jefferson Clinton Foundation. Never was, and certainly there's no such thing as the William Jefferson Clinton Foundation at 20 East Palisades Drive in Little Rock, Arkansas. That's a new address. So why is Bruce Lindsay requesting bills to be sent to an entity that doesn't exist and an address that's not registered in Little Rock? That's an interesting thing.
Wait a minute. Did you know about that address before?
No, I didn't. I haven't.
So what is at 20?
Well, let's stay on because we were on time issues.
Hang on a second there, Charles.
You got, all right. Notice Victoria has a nice signature.
She does. Well, it's
Calligraphy.
put something on those $800 books to make people feel like they're getting their money's worth. Charles, this looks like somebody's house.
Could be Bruce's. You see, this is the standard kind of stuff that you don't want to see in any kind of corporation. You don't want the CEO directing service providers to send bills to your house.
What would be the purpose of that?
To not tell, to hide it.
This is a definitely huge house.
It's probably Bruce Lindsay's house. Personal house. We could look that up at another time, though, Jason, if you don't mind, because I just want.
I don't mind, but I think that's.
So if we keep, but this is only the charges through November 14th, 2011. So there are going to be more charges than this. And if we look at this bill slowly, this is through November 14th. Governance matters. They doctor this bill up, and you go down a little bit. And they give you how the routing numbers and everything. But here's how they do it. They say, here's the person, here's what they did. And notice we could if we stop right here for a second, you could say, let's just say you're the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Just.
And you're watching, I don't know,
this
Charles
show.
Ortel is closing
and you're trying to put, a correspondence file, chronology here together. And now you have these clues, okay? You have how much time they spent on which days, who they were meeting with, about what subjects. I like the entry here that this person, Botcher or whatever, had to revise the interview notes. Now, why would you revise interview notes? It's just like you have a meeting with Ira Magazine or John Podesta and Terry McCall. These are big Doug Band. And you agree in a 7.5-hour meeting. Now, I don't know if you ever spent a 7.5-hour meeting with lawyers. That's a lot of time.
That is.
What the hell are you doing revising interview notes on the November 1st, 2011, which is, I happen to know that the BKD audit for 2010 is dated November 10th, 2011. So how much of what you were doing here were you telling BKD is a question for BKD. And here we have whoever the Mintz is, correspondence with Bjorklund Ray, attorney-client privilege issues for the governance review project. The stuff I was telling you about. Like, what the hell is Bill Clinton doing in the room? What the hell is Doug Band doing in the room? Why are we doing this stuff? Then we keep on going down here. You have emails with Victoria Bjorklund, interviews with these people, revise the interview notes, 8 hours on that. Then we go down here.
Here's Scott Curran.
Scott Curran, yeah. Yeah.
More.
Right.
Now, so this is, okay, but
right.
this is...
But no, we keep on going because it gets pretty interesting in here. There's a very long meeting with, here's a meeting at the foundation office at 77 Water Street. And you would think that somebody at Simpson Thatcher would say, now, I am one of the foremost experts on New York nonprofit corporation law, and I know that New York has a rule. She probably came up with the idea that you have to identify all your offices, and they haven't identified 77 Water Street as one of their offices. So why are they in an office that isn't identified? And what do they find out in this? There's a meeting there at 77 Water and another one. And what was Dennis Cheng doing there?
He was
right?
super liking the
Exactly.
London School of Economics.
He's in a couple of meetings here, and then we get, they love to revise these interview notes. Why they have to do that, I don't know.
Isn't that weird?
Attention to, okay, yeah, here's this one. Okay. Revised interview notes. Interview with Mark Mezvinsky.
Ooh.
10 and a quarter hours. That's on the 14th of November.
That's the Kiss the Ring interview.
Well, that's right before they filed their 990.
When did Chelsea and Mark get married?
They were, I believe, married by this time. And so I think, but you know, why was the Clinton Foundation billed for a 10 hours and 20 and quarter, 15 minutes, 10 hours and 15-minute meeting with Mark Mezvinsky? What was that all about? Okay, as a guess, it had something to do with Mark Mezvinsky raising money from, you know, around Clinton Foundation contacts, Bill Clinton contacts. But this, to me, I'd want to know all about this, and I'd want to know, you know, how much work was being done on the 990 by BKD, which was, I think, filed the next day, and how much did BKD even know about any of this stuff when they filed the 990 for 2010 on the 15th of November 2011. They provided tax advice and they provided audit advice. And then Michael Wolff, when they redid the 2010 990 for November 16th, 2015, after having said in response to articles that I'd done, we don't have to revise it. Why should we revise it? They revised it anyway. How much work did BKD know about any of this stuff? And this is not 153 hours. This is an adjusted bill. Remember, they whacked.
Meaning they got rid of some of the hours.
Yeah, so we don't really know. Lawyers have a lot of freedom
to bill for less hours than they
if they want
do.
to. Sure, you know, that's fine.
So the Chelsea and Mark got married July 31st, 2010.
Yeah, yeah. So this is something. This is one bill. There must be another bill. I haven't seen the other bill. Maybe members of the crowd will find it and send it to me. But you know, by the 11th of November 2011, so 11/11/11, they are finalizing a binder of diligence materials. So what did that binder of diligence materials? We've never seen that. We don't know whether they did indeed chase down all the international corporate documents that they should have chased down. You know, did they chase down the original application for federal tax exemption for Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS Initiative, Inc., which was supposedly tendered sometime in April 2004. Did they ever see that? Did they see the correspondence file with the IRS? There are lots of questions here.
What's the B in STB? Bjorklund?
No, Simpson, Thatcher, Bartlett. Anyway, I wanted people to see this, and I wanted them to see this gives you a sense of the type of bill that a serious law firm would put out, and equally, BKD probably puts bills out like this. And you know, what sort of bills did BKD send to the foundation? Okay, so how much did BKD know about the Simpson-Thatcher review? This is a big question. And if management, Bruce Lindsay is still involved with the Clinton Foundation as a director, I believe. Chelsea is very much involved with the Clinton Foundation, so she was in that meeting. How much did they tell BKD? You see, this is the essence of the fraud problem. If you have people who are running what purports to be a charity and not telling the whole truth, if they're saying, we're going to have a meeting, we like up meetings, we don't like down meetings. So we're not going to tell you about all the laws we're breaking, we're not going to tell you about all the problems, we're going to go to the accountant and we're going to tell you everything went great with our legal meeting, but you can't see any of the work. We're going to go to the legal guys and say, the accountants love our financial statements, they just love them. And we're not going to let you two talk to one another. That's why you got to let them talk to one another without management in the room.
But wouldn't any actual law firm say now, hey, wait a minute, we have to talk to your accountant?
Well, it's the reverse. The accountant needs to talk to the law firm. Yeah, but in the case of Simpson-Thatcher, I would say that my experiences with Simpson-Thatcher, it's a first-class law firm. There are different law firms that are, you know, maybe not so good, but Simpson-Thatcher is in the group of global powerhouse law firms that you know, you get into a serious, big corporate battle or whatever. You want a firm like Simpson-Thatcher, and there's some fine lawyers at Simpson-Thatcher. The ones I know would never allow this bullshit to happen. they would say, no, wait a minute, this is a charity involving the President of the United States, and the Secretary of State is currently there, and you're going to cover all this stuff up, and we got this election coming here, you know, in 2012, and I give money to Democrats and Republicans, and you know, when people get sued, I get sued. I mean, you're not going to do this. You're going to take somebody like AJ66 at NYU EDU, and you're going to say, you know what? Get the fuck out of here and never come back here, because I don't want you anywhere near my firm.
Now, wait a minute. So let's look up Anna James and NYU.
Well, okay, let's do that, but I want to...
All right, you keep going.
Yeah. So...
next page?
Yeah, next page. All right, so this we're going to fly through, and people can read this at your leisure. This is basically chapter and verse in another AICPA, the same thing that you've seen before. This is what you're supposed to do, what the auditor is supposed to do. Is supposed to try to reach out to the external legal firms, try to reach out to Scott Curran, ask them, look at these detailed questions. If you just read this at your leisure, because I'm mindful we've already spent an hour and 51 minutes here. If you go to the next page, some of the specific questions that you have to ask, you got to ask, BKD should have asked the law firms, you know, tell us what this damn Clinton Foundation is. You're a lawyer, you know, what the hell is the Clinton Foundation? Tell us a list of all the subsidiaries in every legal jurisdiction. You saw that Simpson-Thacher made that request early in November 2011. They said, hey, Bruce, Scott, you know, and the other people at the Clinton Foundation, we're doing 38 interviews. Give us a complete list of every legal entity that is operating in the name of the Clinton Foundation, and show me that, if you're a lawyer, show me that you are validly organized and lawfully operated in every legal jurisdiction where you are operating. It's like a base level question. You know, have you done that? Are you in fact a corporation? Are you in fact a subsidiary? You're supposed to do this, you know, at the date, the December 31st, 2012, as of that date, or in this case 2010, and as of the date of the audit. You know, because you finish, the period ends in December 31, 2010, let's say, and you don't finish your audit until November 10th, 2011. So things could have changed in 2011 that would affect the audit for 2010, and similarly in later years. Anyway, this is a long list of things that you were supposed to ask, including you were supposed to go, as the auditor, to the management and say, listen, you know, I want you to tell me about all the claims that, or lawsuits you're involved with currently, and then I want you to tell me about any pending or threatened claims, and if there are none, I want you to write me a letter to the effect that as of this date, there are no pending or threatened claims against my charity, all right? And you've got to get that representation in writing from the responsible members of management before you issue your audit. That's the process BKD and PwC and Cohn-Resnick are going through right now. They have to say that, to the best of their knowledge, they have to get a letter out of these idiot managers of the various Clinton Foundation entities. You know, we are not aware, because we don't care about problems, of any pending or threatened claims like, say, the FBI investigation or the IRS investigation or the foreign investigations or the state investigation. We're not aware of any of those, because what we do is we have an office in some place we don't have told you about, and we let that person go and interact with all the government people and not tell us what's going on. Alternatively, we're just lying to your face and not telling you the truth.
Yeah.
So you see, it's not, this isn't an area where, let's say, Eric Hansen, as the chairman of the AICPA, can say, you know, there's no regulatory guidance on this. We're just auditors. You know, we don't have to comply with any of these legal things. That's what lawyers do. That's not correct at all.
Charles, Kevin in the comments is telling us that address in Arkansas was Bruce Lindsay's until just recently. It was transferred to a trust on October 10th, 2018.
Interesting.
See, this is what we're doing here with Crowdsource the Truth. We're you know, looking through this material. This is not what CNN, or we're not trying to be CNN. This is engaging a global community to demand answers to this type of huge scale criminal activity.
Exactly.
Well done, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin. So, well, let's keep going, because we're almost, this is just a few more pages of these type of serious questions. And this is just lifted from the document. These are the different things you got to get. And if you've changed legal counsel, you've got to go back over and you've got to ask management, why'd you change legal counsel? And you probably need to speak to the previous legal counsel. So my overarching question for BKD and the auditors is, is it the case that when you took on the assignment to, in quote, audit these Clinton Foundation entities, were you limited just to doing domestic work? And if so, who at the Clinton Foundation told you to do that? And who at BKD said that's okay, which isn't one of the questions that's there, and which accounting firms audited, in quotes, the international operations of the Clinton Foundation? Because I have a sneaking suspicion that they got, the equivalent, the Nigerian equivalent of Gary McGee and Company, Chinua Achebe Associates, who's a famous, actually, Nigerian author, I think. But some guy who's a former musician that you met in a piano bar in Lagos over a few beers and I don't know what else. You say, yeah, you know how to serve a great beer. Why don't you do an audit on our Nigerian office, and nobody will know the difference. Nobody's going to go to Nigeria, so So the question of whether the trustees took this seriously, who were people interacting with when they were doing these audits. Where are the representation letters from management to BKD? BKD better have them. Clinton Foundation better have them. What did those letters say? Typically what happens is the accounting firm looks at your file and they say, let's say I'm the one they're going after, and they say, Charles, we really just can't tell you how much we enjoyed the sensation of going to some of your offices and realizing that you're not telling us anything remotely close to the truth. So we have 165 pages of questions we'd like you to answer, and we know you're going to lie to us, and we're going to put up with it because, your wife, Hillary Clinton's Secretary of State, and she's going to be president, and we don't want her to jump down our whatever once she becomes president of the United States. So we're going to go through this fiction here of asking you tough questions. We know you're going to lie to us in your answers. We'll have this back and forth. It'll take a few weeks. We'll bill you, I don't know, $100,000 or so. And then we'll write a piece of paper that's meaningless because you're going to assure us that Barack Obama and Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch and the IRS are never going to look into this.
Right.
And of course, Hillary's going to be president, and then we get, we all go to heaven.
Right.
But there's going to be a paper trail here.
Right.
Right? And so in 2012, though, after Simpson-Thatcher goes in, somehow in 2012, a decision was reached that this BKD firm was not good enough to handle the work of this mysterious Clinton Health Access Initiative thing that we've talked about ad nauseum. So they replaced BKD in Clinton Health Access Initiative, and the new auditor says, basically the most important thing that BKD was doing in accounting for this new CHI is completely wrong. And so we're going to do it a radically different way. And so the Board of Trustees says, okay, we've just learned that our main accounting firm has been, excuse this, ladies and gentlemen, bitch slapped by a competitor. And, and the board of New CHI, which is controlled by the Clinton Foundation actually, has decided, probably against the wishes of the Clinton family, but we can figure this out eventually, to do this radically different approach. We're going to let them do that, and then we're still going to use the bitch slap BKD to do the consolidation of the whole entity. And we're not going to explain any of this in the parent company financial statements. I mean, this is just this is like, when I first looked at this, and it's not that I'm an expert in accounting, but I can add, and I can do a few things, And I looked at this and I said, this is a very useful case study, because if you want to teach somebody how to properly run a charity, you just look at this case study.
Do the opposite.
Exact opposite. Anything the Clinton Foundation did in this case study, you don't want to do. It's that simple. You just don't want to do it. So it's very useful.
I heard that chicken salad is not the opposite of tuna salad.
That's true. Or alternatively, if you put chicken shit together with chicken shit, it doesn't make chicken salad. If you go to the next page, here we're going to go pretty quickly. So, to the trustees, the present trustees of the Clinton Foundation, first of all, you may think that you're directors. The Clintons may have told you that you're directors. You don't have the same kind of liabilities as trustees. Trustees, I believe, have more liabilities. The Arkansas Nonprofit Corporation, using this federal employer identification number that's listed there, has never validly amended its articles of incorporation in 8. We give you a link to that, and here is what it says. The portion of it says, the affairs of the corporation shall be managed by a board of directors that shall be known and referred to as a board of trustees. So you're either a trustee or you're not, right?
Yeah.
And the number of the trustees shall be 3, and it can never be fewer than 3, okay? And that's important. We've had multiple presentations for the novices who are not familiar with the difference between
2 and 3.
If you have 2 trustees in something, chances are it's not a real. It's more like a partnership. It's not a real. What is it?
Triumvirate.
3's a crowd, I guess. No, triumvirate isn't the correct word, but the point is, Arkansas law specifies that if you want to be a corporation, you have to have 3, either directors or trustees. But here, these people, these geniuses said, we're going to be trustees. Well, now, they had the ability to hire a lawyer, find an Arkansas lawyer, and say, you know what, let's change it. Let's amend our articles of incorporation when Bill is still president, and let's call ourselves directors instead of trustees. Trustees, to me, when somebody says I'm a trustee, sounds better. It sounds like you're higher liability if you screw up than if you're a director, which I think is, in essence, how it works.
And distrustee doesn't exactly roll off the tongue.
Distrustee over here. So, but then you look in Statement 8 of the 1999-990, they say they only had 2 trustees. They admit that. And if we've shown people this before, but people can go and look at Statement 8. This is what they filed with the IRS when Bill was still president. They file it late as they're walking out the door with some of the furniture. In that period, late in 2000, they filed the 1999-990. And they say, you know what, we only had 2 trustees for the entire year. And Bill was president. He'd survived the impeachment trial. And he's living large, feeling optimistic about the future, knowing that the IRS was not going to go after him. His own Department of Justice wasn't going to go after him. So they said, you know what, we're just going to admit in this filing that we broke the law for the whole year. In fact, we broke it for all of 1999, and then through the date of filing of this, and nobody went into the Clintons and said, you just admitted here that you're not a corporation, and therefore you're screwed. You can't put the genie back in the bottle here. It's basically all wrong. To top it off, there's no audit.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is something people say to me, well, Charles, how come nobody's looking at this, right? So if you hit this Google search link here, above it there, Jason, this is a simple Google search link of me with the Clinton Foundation. Okay, and it's only 18,000 results. Okay, so
seems low for today.
Right, no, I'm just saying there are many, many examples and multiple platforms going back multiple years, and I'm sure this is a certain amount, and this is even in Real Clear Politics picked up.
I'm surprised that these come up faster than Sunday with Charles.
I don't know how it works exactly, but the point here is that there is, and we can disagree, people can say, well, it's in LifeSet, or it's in Sputnik, or it's in Daily Caller, but actually it's also in Fox News and Progressive Radio and across the political spectrum, many different places. And people can look at this at their leisure, but there's a lot of information out there, particularly you in the FBI, you in attorneys, U.S. attorneys, state attorneys general, foreign attorneys. There's a lot of information for you to look, synthesis that we've done. And as of this date, we have not received a single communication from anybody in the Clinton Foundation saying, you know what, dude, you're wrong. You're wrong for these reasons. We haven't got one communication.
Not one.
Not one.
Yeah, because they know you're not wrong.
Right. So then we go back into it. Stuart Dean, we've had him on. Mm-hmm. And if we hit this one, here it's 116 results of, Stuart is a great lawyer, and he's retired at this point, but he's done a lot of good work on this. It's out there in the public domain. People who want to pick up where Stuart left off.
Yeah, he's the one who told us about the private rooftop garden.
Right. And he's a great guy.
Mm-hmm.
So there's another set of documents for people to look at. And then if we go back in, for people who want to understand Arkansas law, this is, if you hit this one, This is a handy dandy guide from 2011, right around the time that Simpson Thacher was doing their work. You know, Victoria is an expert on New York law. Here's a legal guide on Arkansas nonprofit law from 2011, originally. And if we go back into the slide, if a board member does not exercise the duty of care and engages in an act or omission constituting negligence, he or she can be held personally liable for the damage he caused. So again, I'm not a lawyer, but if I were on the board of any Clinton Foundation entity here, I would not give a shit what a member of management told me about the firm, and I would want outside counsel to make a beeline. I'd pay the outside counsel to watch some subset of this stuff, and then I demand that the outside counsel, at the expense of the Clinton Foundation, provide me a PAC demonstrating that the Clinton Foundation is duly organized, lawfully organized and operated in every legal jurisdiction where it's ever been organized and operated, and they won't be able to do that. Yeah. So there's a lot of work here to do by the trustees. And again, I'm not giving any kind of legal advice, just personal advice. You know, Mr. Ibrahim, your daughter, is on the board of this main Clinton Foundation, and she is involved in lots of high visibility charities around the world, and you, sir, supposedly are worth many billions of dollars. As this thing goes down, you're going down. You're going to be footing the bill. And you know, Mr. Ibrahim is famous for having put together, he's, I gather, a scientist and a businessman. He put together these wireless companies across Africa, sold out, and he sponsors the richest prize in philanthropy, the Ibrahim Prize. He publishes, which I would not really do this, but he does what he wants. But he actually has an entity that puts out a corruption index and ranking countries, the Ibrahim Corruption Index. It's not the first thing I think about doing, but
I wonder why he would do that. Is it possible that he's like, well, I wouldn't be involved in corruption. I'm indexing.
I don't think he is, but then again, when you...
I don't know anything about the guy. I'm not implying that he is, but it's strange when...
Yeah. So if we go to the next page, and we're almost mercifully through.
Oh, that's the last page.
Yeah. I don't know why that link didn't work for us, but John Solomon has a great piece in... for some reason, yeah, this came out this morning, and I guess he appeared in The Rising, which is something I think he's in charge of at the Hill, and he's making some salient points. I mean, people were trying to, early this morning, last night, they were trying to sell the results as, oh, it's another Trump disaster, he overpromised, underdelivered. Let's see what the final result is. Let's compare it, you know, sensibly to past examples. And I'm more in the camp of John Solomon on this. I think that it's early days, it's less than 24 hours, really. We're going to have open contests and contested races for many days, maybe weeks. And certainly compared to the promises that were made at the beginning of 2008, that, you know, this blue wave is coming, it's going to wash out the Republicans, you know, that was just completely wrong. And how many, we've ridiculed that idea many times in shows here. How many times did we have to hear about the blue wave and, you know, the Republicans will be out of power for generations. This was a fluke. Donald Trump stole the election with the connivance of a foreign power.
Yeah.
That's all rubbish.
It is, exactly.
And if we go back into the slide.
There's a question coming from the comments, Charles. Do we have any indication if the Clinton Foundation kept multiple accounting books?
Most likely, absolutely. So when you have, you can do that legitimately, actually. So that's when I would buy and sell companies that had operations in many different parts of the world. You have to be extremely careful about that, because the standard trick, this didn't happen to me, but I was spending a lot of time in India on a project, and after a while, you start reading the local Indian business publications, and I was hearing about how, I think it was Reebok India, was doing gangbusters, and it would make sense. Sneakers are sneakers, labor's cheap. It should be able to make sneakers in India, and maybe the shipping cost is going to be expensive, but Anyway, and so the local success story in India was Reebok India. They went, oh, it's fantastic. We're going to take over the world. Well, India great, America bad. And so I opened, I'm like foggy one morning. Maybe I went out, had a few scotches.
In the morning?
Not in the morning, no, the previous night with my friend, business school buddy. And I'm a little foggy in the morning. I'm opening the paper, looking at it, and it's all about Reebok. And it turned out that the manager of Reebok India was basically saying, all right, this is the way it's going to work. We're going to build corporate for all the costs. We're going to get them to ship us a bunch of money, and then we're going to cut costs. In fact, we're going to cut them a lot, and we're going to say over here, we made a whole bunch of Reebok sneakers in this portion of the factory, but in our secret factory funded by Reebok, we're going to sell a whole bunch of Seabox or some other kind of sneaker that sounds sort of like Reebok, and we're just going to keep all the money and not tell the parent about it. So that's why, and that kind of stuff happens all day long around the world. It happens in America.
Wow.
And so that's why controls are so important. That's why you bring in a BKD. That's why you would go to, you'd be encouraged to go to BKD. You'd think, well, hey, the guy who runs it, chief operating officer, is the chairman of the organization that writes the laws and regulations, enforces all this. I mean, how can he miss all this?
The man has a tiger. He must know what he's doing.
Exactly. So anyway, what happened while we were putting these slides together, and I can't wait to see the press conference. We have this this conference here, this news conference that Donald Trump was taking. People were saying he's never going to come forward. He's going to wilt. And apparently, this press conference was better than like a mixed martial arts fight. I mean, he berated.
I can't get enough of Trump making fun of Jim Acosta.
Oh, well, it gets better, and then apparently, I think it's an African American, a female African American. Well, I guess we lose that, huh? Yeah, a female African American, I think NPR reporter, accused Trump in this press conference. It was open press, by the way. It wasn't restricted. Mm-hmm. Accused him of being a white nationalist, and he interrupted her and called her a racist.
Ooh.
And that caused Jake Tapper, and I think many in the punditocracy, they're going batshit crazy if they weren't batshit crazy before.
Well, Charles, I hope that this midterm election, despite not having exactly the outcome that I really would have wanted, perhaps it's now the moment where Donald Trump will finally engage. He seems to have been kind of like a crouching tiger the whole time. Right. Not Truman the tiger, but maybe now Sessions is out of the way, and hopefully he can, really start to get some things done. Well,
yeah, and so I think here's this report. It's pretty interesting that Daily Caller, this Chuck Ross is a very good reporter. Here's exit polls saying more than half of the voters think the Mueller probe, boy, they're getting you every which way from Sunday, huh?
That's right.
Think it's not fair, and that it's politically motivated. And I definitely believe this is a cover-up exercise to protect Mueller, to protect Rosenstein, to protect Comey, to protect the crooks who allowed the Clinton Foundation frauds to flourish. That's what this is all about.
I agree. Robert Mueller is looking like not so, I don't know, he looks a little haggard.
Peckish?
Yeah, he kind of, Yeah.
So I wrote this before knowing, expect President Trump to shake up leadership at Justice. Well, I guess he did that.
There you go.
But, and here's something written, let's think, 9:15 this morning, from, who's it, Politico? Yeah, they want you to turn off your ad blocker.
Because they go, this is the problem with advertiser-driven
stuff.
News.
Yeah. So the thrust of this from the coordinated, left-leaning media was that, new sheriff in town, Democrats, they're gonna, Mueller's got a lot of work, he's gonna go, hell-bent for leather against the Trump people, which may happen. And by the way, if Mueller has found evidence of, legitimately found evidence of a crime, serious crime, involving even the president himself. If this happened, bring it forward, right?
Why wait?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I asked Larry Klayman if he felt that Mueller, specifically stating that he would wait until after the midterms to issue his report, was an indicator that he had no evidence. And Larry said it doesn't matter if he has evidence or not. He'll turn nothing into something. But I think it is. I think if you found evidence, you'd bring it forward right away.
Well, again, if the goal here is to, I mean, remember, I think both sides, the Republicans and the Democrats, were in theory playing for keeps. Then there's a, you know, maybe in fact it's just one big uniparty and they want to have the appearance of conflict so they can just stay in power jointly together forever. But there are groups in the Republicans who like to stamp the Democrats into the dirt and drive them, 40 basement levels down and then throw acid on them. And similarly in the Democrats, I'm sure the same thing. But one of the things that I really want to know is why the Clinton Foundation probes have been stalled, right? And I hope we're going to find that out now with this Matthew Whitaker having been appointed acting Attorney General. We don't need to hit this thing because it's just a long summary of sessions out. But this one here, in January 2009, the House Ways and Means Committee is, in theory, Real Clear Politics, saying they're going to demand Trump's tax returns.
But, are they allowed to do that?
I don't know. And there will ensue. You see, Trump is used to tough fights, and he's going in for one heck of a tough fight. I think the goal of the swamp is to look at a Donald Trump and say, all right, he's 71 or whatever he is now. In theory, he's worth 10 billion or whatever the right number is. You're only going to live for so long. If I make your life really, really miserable, maybe you reach a point where you say, I'll serve out my one term
and give up.
I'll give up. And
I don't think he's going to do that.
I don't think he's that type of guy. I mean, he's an all or nothing, art of the deal kind of guy.
Yeah. I think he's got a long ball plan that involves now digging in. I mean, look, it's not like he was sitting around and saying, oh, we're definitely going to have a red wave and sweep the midterms. He had to have a plan for what happens if they hold the House and what happens if they lose the House, and we see him executing that plan. Sessions is out, and anybody who thinks that that's proof that Trump did something wrong, I don't agree with that. I think that's proof that he's taking the gloves off and saying it's time to clear this illegal Mueller investigation out of the way. Look, this new Attorney General could just say, Robert Mueller, you're going to have to deliver a report next week with all your findings. This thing is wrapping up. Where's the evidence? You can't just investigate indefinitely. Where is it? Scrutinize it and have what role will the Attorney General play in a Robert Mueller decision? I mean, he doesn't supersede the power of the Attorney General.
Well, this gets back to this whole constitutional issue. You're supposed to be run in theory by a constitutionally, by a Senate confirmed appointee. And when did that happen? I mean, I know Mueller previously was FBI director, so he was confirmed, but
not in this role.
Not in this role, exactly. And who actually is monitoring Mueller? So I don't know the answer to that question.
Other than DC bartenders, you mean?
But every American taxpayer is entitled to understand, what the hell this team has been doing, how the decisions were made to put together a group of 17 angry Democrats.
And then collude with the Wall Street Journal and various other members of the mainstream media to spread incorrect and false information about someone that Scott Curran had seemingly a student working with. There's a very convoluted web surrounding Peter W. Smith and his strange death.
Right, and this is what I wanted to put up because we both met Juanita Broaddrick. And this guy, Philippe Reince, is somebody I think is truly a deplorable individual. I mean, he delights in when the Clintons were in power. He delighted in treating, when he had the power to deny access to journalists, to key figures, and make their life. He delighted in treating people horribly. To call Juanita Broaddrick this, I'm sorry, you don't get away with that, Philippe Reince. You just don't. I've spent time with her. Jason has spent time with her. I've followed her story since the first time I heard about it, off and on. And I'll tell you one person who's definitely full of shit, and that's Philippe Reince.
Exactly.
And he frankly is unfit. What was that thing that Jerry Corsi wrote, Unfit for Command? He's unfit to hold any responsibility any office of responsibility in anything, whether in government, in a charity, in journalism, whatever. This guy is just a hitman. He's a political hitman. And I was interested to know, wanted to see more about him, so I looked him up on Twitter. He's got 60,000+ tweets, and I come to discover he's blocked me.
Who did? Philippe Rines?
Philippe Rines.
Yeah, because he knows that you are, I mean, so now they like Kenneth Starr? Kenneth Starr is suddenly the authority for what is correct and incorrect according to the Clintons?
Yeah, again, you don't listen to people like these are bobblehead dolls. This guy will say whatever he wants to say. Somebody told him to go out and say something like this. He didn't just come up with this on his own. He was probably in a room, and Hillary Clinton was probably, getting up at the crack of 4 p.m. and brushing the Chardonnay bottles away from the couch. And
what a disgraceful bastard this guy is.
He really is. He really is. And I certainly, if we're talking about you have a right to be believed. Did Juanita Broaddrick have a right to
How do they reconcile that?
Well, they don't. They're bobblehead dolls.
Jeez.
Right? Say anything. Now, this Willie Geist, I think it's Willie Geist, he's left-leaning, but well, let's not pull the link up because we don't need to help MSNBC. But Willie Geist claimed that Trump might actually enjoy the impeachment fight. And looking back in the Bill Clinton history, that's exactly what Hillary Clinton said. We're going to actually do better because of this impeachment. So the Clintons were all in. There were multiple books and articles written about it.
Sure, I understand that strategy.
Well, because if you think their theory was everybody lies about sex, and that's all that was, and that's the way they're going to pitch it. And they have this corrupt media establishment and political establishment. Everybody stooping everybody and doing whatever down in Washington.
What about this dress, Mr. Clinton? He's like, I don't pay attention to that.
Is Chelsea anywhere near the television set? Chelsea, why don't you go on a spelunking expedition for the next month? Till this dies down. Anyway, but I think there's an element of truth to that because I think Donald Trump actually, certainly he will not be convicted, which is you can get indicted,
right,
which is what impeachment is. Bill was indicted, but he wasn't convicted.
Because he settled, right?
No, because the vote didn't, you have to I forget if it's 2/3 vote of the Senate. Senate sits in trial. The House of selected members of the House of Representatives make the case. They get bills of impeachment passed, and that's like an indictment. So the charges are specified in those bills, and they're tried before the Senate, which happened. The Senate Democrats in the Senate say, the reason we're going to do this properly and objectively, we're Democrats, and in case of Kavanaugh, you're going to reach around the world because you're attacking a Republican. You're going to go back into somebody's diary when he was 15 years old. You're going to dredge up all this stuff. You're going to hire this idiot Avenatti and all these other people to go out on CNN and MSNBC and manufacture all this bullshit. But in the case of Juanita Broaddrick, who I think gave testimony, Democrats said, what we're going to do, because we're advocates for women, is not a single Democrat read her testimony.
Whoa! Why did they not even read it?
Because it's Bill Clinton. It's not 1999, and Valentine's Day is coming up.
I'm sure she's told me that, but it's one of those things that you got to say again and again because it's like, what? We have this idiot occupying the news cycle for days and days with a fake story that she can't even remember the details of, and throngs of protesters accusing the guy of being a rapist on television where his young daughters hear that. And they won't even listen to Juanita Broaddrick.
Still, this is now...
I would like this guy, Philippe Rines, to meet Juanita Broaddrick and tell her that to her face, because he looks like a sissy to me, and she would hit him in his all-encompassing hole.
Exactly. I think that's not going to happen. I mean, that'll happen in the second edition of, Welcome to Hell, Rowan Atkinson. Welcome to Hell, my name is Toby. Philippe Rines will be right in there. So we're just going to close by reminding people that GE is still whoa. The market today, I believe, was up 2%, and GE is down 2+%. And you don't like to see that. You really don't like to see. You have a new CEO. Typically, there's a honeymoon period, but maybe this CEO, Mr. Culp, is getting the Donald Trump treatment. You don't get a honeymoon. It's just a nightmare from day one. And this is really bad. If you're not inclined to do any kind of the number work that we started doing last show, where we showed you some of the financials for GE, you really don't want to go through a hyped analyst meeting, right? Your scheduled analyst meeting. You say, you know what? We're not going to do the analyst meeting when we said. We're going to give you an extra special, fantastic analyst meeting. Our new CEO is going to fly around the world looking at GE stuff. We'll put together a fantastic presentation. He gives a fantastic presentation, and the market pukes on it. And it goes from the stock is like 1150 or whatever it is. Now it's 920. It's going straight down. They try every trick in the book. Culp's going to buy some stock. Stock goes up a little, then puke. And then we're selling the lighting business. Or we agreed to sell a little bit up, then puke. And this is all in a rising market. This is happening, and 920. You're getting close to the bargain basement. Once you get to 5 on a stock like this, people have to sell. Certain types of institutions have to get out. You're looking at this as somebody who's got, let's say a fair amount of stock that you inherited or you've had a long time position. You're not looking at this trend and looking forward at instability and looking at this and say, you know what, Thanksgiving's coming up, and Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever. This is a 2019 project. Let's not worry about this. There's always going to be a GE. I mean, Sears didn't just go bankrupt.
Oops,
it did. Yeah, it did, I guess. And General Motors didn't go bankrupt. Oh, yes, it did, right? So you look at this trend and you see, a little bit of ups, but the market's way up and it's steadily down, and there are no straight answers coming, and this guy is bitching and moaning about the Clinton Foundation, started out bitching and moaning about GE, and he hasn't given up on it. This is something that regulators and the acting Attorney General should be looking at General Electric, not simply for the recent period, but going all the way back before Immelt to Welch. I think this is a case like the Clinton Foundation where the books have been cooked. And multiple accounts have been paid hundreds of millions of dollars over long periods of time. No one of them has stood up and said, you know what, look, this actually isn't that complicated. There's a bank. And how does the bank compare to Goldman Sachs? It's crap, okay? So it shouldn't have a high multiple, so it's not worth that much, okay? So over here we got a crap bank. Let's take that out. Now what else do we have? We got a hodgepodge of businesses. It's always changing.
Avionics, medical stuff.
No, it's always changing. Like one year it's a collection of this, next year it's a collection of something different.
Really?
And we buy, we sell, we never. You should be forced to show shareholders, okay, we're going to take the same store sales idea. We're going to take the same exact collection of businesses that existed in 2017 and 2016, and we're going to show you in granular fashion, no monkey business on restructuring. It's the same stuff. How do the revenues trend? How do the unit sales trend? How do the price per unit trend? How do the costs, important costs and cash flow, and all that stuff trend on that stuff? Then if you've done all this mixing and matching, do a set of books on that, and an investor can say, okay, this is the steady Eddie GE that I think is so fantastic, been around since 1892,
yeah.
And here's this shell game over here that's going like this. And you'll see that there's just constant this. And if I wanted to do that, I wouldn't be overpaying for a chance to let overpaid managers, try and fail and spend a ton of money around the world with all these accountants or whatever. And I'd ask somebody to put an audit trail back, going all the way back, explaining, and I certainly wouldn't hire the person who wrote this book. It would be a different book, exactly what happened at GE. That's what I want to know.
But Charles, if you've got a company with $122 billion in revenue, isn't there some way to just sell half of it, scale it down, make it profitable? I mean, that seems like so much money. There's got to be something to be done.
That's why
we're going off the track.
But I'll answer quickly. So for the, I had the best education I had was by my parents actually, at home. But later in business, I was very fortunate to start in business in a full-time job at 24 and be trained by people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s and older who had been around for a long time and been through a lot of wars and had the scars to prove it. And one of the wisest ones would always say to me, I remember the first time I had to pitch an idea, and he just cut me off and he said, well, what are the risks? This is like the Clinton approach. we don't do risks. I mean, we don't, right? But if you've been
What
around,
could possibly go wrong?
yeah. Well, actually, in the case of GE, the risk factor section of GE, which is where you're supposed to lay out your risks in a legal annual report 10K, I made a big deal out of this, that the risk factor section, you can figure on the length of the words, right, number of words. For GE, they had millions of pages of documents, right, that they're putting out. The risk factor section, you're going to go ape on this, was 666 words.
Oh.
Which, exactly. But it's a very, for me it was like, in a risk factor section, I was always trained, you want it to be long. You're writing that risk factor section because you're thinking ahead, what if you screwed up? When you're sued, you made a mistake, you want to be able to say to your investors, look, I told you there was a risk of this. I told you there was a risk of that. I told you there was a risk of something else. But on balance, I've looked at all those risks, and I think the opportunities are greater than the risks, and that's why we should do this investment. So if you're a smart investor, right, what you want to talk about first, somebody comes into your office and says, Charles, I want you to invest in the fashion business. And I say, see ya. That's not happening. I don't do fashion businesses.
Too fickle.
I just don't do it. It's like I don't want to do it. So I don't understand.
It's not your industry.
Yeah, but everyone has a different thing.
Right.
Somebody else comes in and says, I want to do a gold mine. I'd say, yeah, I'll do that. I like that.
Oh, but
gold
it's
is
in
good.
Africa.
No.
But Charles, I mean, that can't be a coincidence that it's 666 words. And what about the fact that we've got the first CEO Welch's, the second one melts, and now this guy's culpable? It seems like a big, I don't know what.
I think that's in the God's fucking with you department. I mean, because you couldn't, if you're trying to do a movie about this.
Maybe it's just a big giant scam, possibly.
Right. So anyway, the GE story is something we're watching closely. I think here we've had this absurd election here in New Yorkistan, where Cuomo and others have just steamrolled. But one important thing, and we're going to not go into the detail today, but Barack Obama and his team have been talking a lot of, frankly, smack about the president and their accomplishments, and thinking that they're going to get away with operating the Barack Obama Foundation in the same way as the Clinton Foundation. And I'm here to tell you that ain't going to happen. That's not happening. And it has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with political persuasion. It has everything to do with, we got one former president who's operating the largest fraud, charity fraud, ever attempted in history. We can't let the successor Democrat president go down a track of emulating and getting away with it.
Well, it's obvious that was the intention.
As a guess, but there's another organization called, with a really catchy name, Organizing for Action.
It's the same as Obama for America, OFA.
It's the same idea.
That they're different names, same initials.
Right, same pattern
this?
as the Clinton Foundation thing. So what I did with this...
There's also Organizing for America, and then Obama for America.
Organizing for Action is this one. It's got, there might be for America as well, but this one I was looking at was Organizing for Action. And as usual, this is not a 501c3 charity, it's a C4, which is a political charity. But here, free advice, you have file paperwork in New York, okay, in this charity file. But when you look up Organizing for Action to see whether it's a corporation in New York, there's no filing.
I wonder.
So on this issue of organized and operate, if you just punch in the organization name, this is Organizing for Action, and you hit search. Waiting. What's going on? There you go. Then you hit the bar here. Go to the bar.
Maybe Robert Mueller's there.
I was going to say, but I didn't, because I figured you'd say it.
It's very slow, this charity website.
Organizing for Inaction. Anyway, we go down the list here. This is hysterical. Go down Documents for Available. We'll go down a little bit here. And hit Certificate of Incorporation.
There's download?
Yeah, download in the lower left. You hit that, yeah. Okay, so this was set up in Washington, D.C., okay? Now, do you see, this is like a simple question, do you see an article, Purposes?
Name, members. Registered agents, nonprofit, incorporation. I do not.
Right. So here's an entity that has no purpose. Kind of tough to be an organizer. Look who signed it?
It was
Bob Bauer, Perkins Coie. January, I can't tell if that's 18th or 13th. Maybe it's 18th.
looks like 13.
That's 2013, but that looks like an 8 to me.
That looks like a very weird 8, but okay.
Yeah, crazy 8.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's Truman's face sideways. But anyway, so this thing was created January 18th, 2013, several days, 2 weeks before Hillary Clinton leaves as Secretary of State. But I find no evidence. I don't see the paperwork filed in New York for this entity to be, this is, it's a strange entity. It basically says in other documents we'll talk about another time in depth, because I'm mindful of the time here. I think there's an organizing for action problem in many states, in California and elsewhere. I think there are financial problems with that, and there's certainly problems with the Barack Obama Foundation. The same November 15th, 2018 deadline that applies to the Clinton Foundation applies to the Barack Obama Foundation and to other presidential foundations and other charities. So we're focused on the Clinton Foundation because it's the biggest. We're focused on the Barack Obama Foundation because it is the most aggressive and most unrepentant and most determined to follow the Clinton Foundation example. But we're also going to be focused on the Bush foundations and other foundations. This is not what, I try to focus on the biggest problem first. So GE's ginormous but getting smaller. The Clinton Foundation, ginormous and getting bigger. Barack Obama Foundation, no offense to peanuts, but it's still a peanut in terms of financial terms. So with that, there's something I thought it was pretty funny here. I don't know if you noticed this article here from Agence France Presse, but there's a raging debate, Jason, a raging debate about this cigar-shaped thing.
From space?
Yeah, and Harvard has got some alien spacecraft theory. I mean, that's news to me. That a cigar-shaped rock is zooming through our solar system, may have been sent by aliens. But look at what they call it. This could be the original name of Obama.
Where do you see that?
Oumuamua.
Oh, I see. That's strange.
I say that in jest.
Of course, but that's strange that Harvard would think it's an alien spacecraft. I thought that was, what someone would consider.
And now look at his name. This is hysterical. Shmuel Bialy. Isn't a Bialy?
It's like a bagel.
I know. What is the difference between a bagel and a Bialy?
No hole in the Bialy, and I think you cook it differently.
Okay. All right. Anyway, on that note, that's the presentation. We're not. We made it a little long today because we're hoping that investigators are watching it. We're mindful of the time. We will not be having a Sunday with Charles this coming Sunday or the following Sunday for a variety of reasons. But we're going to do extra special closing ins, and the closing in for next week. I mean that closing thought to the Clinton Foundation. You make my life even better if you file yet another false and materially misleading set of financial statements. Same to you, BKD, Pricewaterhouse, Cohen Resnick. You're increasing your liability. We love that. Okay? We love it. Just go, and we can't wait. And we're standing ready. A large team of us is ready to evaluate whatever you do. You have 8 days. God created the world in 7. You can fix this. You can, there's the name of the new acting attorney general. Sometimes I'm told in these type of legal matters, you go in, cap in hand, you blame it all on Bill and Hillary and Chelsea, and you say, I had no reason to know. I did my due diligence. I have this letter and that letter and another letter and this from Andrew Kessel and this from Bruce Lindsay, whatever. How was I to know? I know I have all these advertisements and campaigns where I say the reason you hired BKD is I'm supposed to know, but you can go to these people and say, look, I was deceived, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa, and I'm rescinding my previous work, and I'm letting the world know that I made a mistake. You can do that, okay? That would be you're not in a zone now where you're trying to think through, am I going to get the Powerball $1.6 billion prize or the whatever it is, the Irish lottery, 200 million euro prize. No, no, no. You're in the zone where you are trying to get the least possible liability. That's what you should be thinking through here. So we will be looking with great interest to see what your what your accounting department decides to put in on November 15th, 2018. It's going to be really interesting, and we're not talking here just about the Clinton Foundation. We're talking about Clinton Health Access Initiative. We're talking about Alliance for a Healthier Generation. We're talking about all the international charities. We're talking about the Bill Gates Foundation and the 50 private foundations that have donated, to the known ones that we know about, to the Clinton Charity Network. We're going to be looking at all that stuff. And we sincerely hope you get it right.
So basically you're saying blame it on the tiger.
That has a certain ring to it.
Well, Charles, that was another amazing, that was actually a really fun one. It's amazing how funny fraud can be when you set your mind to it. I definitely want to remind our viewers that Crowdsource the Truth is community sponsored, and we really need people to be going to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Become a sponsor for as little as $2 a month. $5 a month is the average, actually. That helps a lot, keeps the channel going, keeps me able to purchase food, little things like that. So it's really good. And I want to thank all of our generous sponsors, and I want to thank you, Charles. I will see you next Wednesday for another episode of Closing In. And of course, tomorrow, Thursday, we've got an episode of The Intelligence Assessment with Kevin Shipp. That's only on Patreon, and Kevin's going to be talking about a topic actually that Cheryl Atkinson coincidentally covered in The Hill very recently, the CIA spying on whistleblowers, major crimes by the CIA. So you don't want to miss that. You can go to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/Kevin_Shipp to watch The Intelligence Assessment with Kevin Shipp. Thanks for watching, everybody.